Welcome back. Welcome to Friday. Inside the Vault, off the hinges. I am so honored to have today's guest. I told her this earlier, and maybe it sounds like I say this because I love a lot of my guests, and they're pretty close people. But this is family. And not only is this family, it's not like the immediate family of my wife and daughters, but this is family from my dad's side of the family, from the Murano side, the Italian side. So this is the first guest from that side of the family, and just one of the most just beautiful inside and out, rock solid women I know. I am so honored. And I've got to say, there are a lot of virtues that I could have hoped for, but I turned it over to her, and her selection is perfect for her. And there's so many other things I think of related to her. We'll get into that. But today is all about Prudence. And whatever you think you might know about it, I really hope you check your bias and your ego at the door and open your ears and open your hearts to hear from just an amazing mother and woman. And Saragine, I'm so blessed to have you here today. I love you so much. Please, as I take a sip of coffee, because I am grinding on some fumes today, introduce yourself to the watchers, listeners, people who are dialed in today.
Oh, thanks, Josh. That was such a sweet introduction. I love you too. And I'm really honored to be here. My name is Saragine, right? Saragine De Amorim, but I just use that to honor my parents. I go by Sara. Always have, always will. But I like to print it out, the name they gave me, because I think it's so unique and beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And honors, my roots. So I'm so happy to be here.
I know. It's so
let's get into the conversation. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Let's do it. This is cool too, because this is the first guest I have. You're dialing in from Brazil, right?
Yeah, yep.
So that's pretty rad. That's cool. We got me in Norway, you in Brazil. We're like the two in the family that we just went to the seven seas, I feel like, That's what we did.
Yeah. We both went very far, didn't we?
We sort of did. I mean, our families love and support us, but I'm sure at times they're like, why are you so damn far away? But you know what? We love you guys, but it's pretty great.
I hear that from outside and from inside my own brain. So
yeah, me too sometimes. That's okay. I mean, things will come full circle, I'm sure. But I love the heart of who you are, and I mean it. There's so many things. I think, so first of all, this is really cute. I shared this with Sara, but it was adorable because when I posted on the Instagram story the little promo of, hey, I have my cousin coming up for Prudence, and I was like, oh, what song do I want to? I don't always pair it with a song, but I was like, this has got to go with a song because we both love music. And it was immediately my mind went to, because it's Karina's favorite song right now. She's 3. So she rotates, but Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. Every time we get in the car now, Daddy, can we listen to Here Comes the Sun? And I was like, that is what entered my mind. I was like, thinking of this episode with you, it's just a ray of sunshine. And you just bring a lot of love and a lot of joy. And actually, I would say conversations with you just set the heart at peace. So I think people hearing you today and your posture are just in for just being challenged, sure, but just such a peaceful encounter and such a loving encounter. And so when Karina asked for that, I was like, that's the perfect song for Sara. Yes, we can listen to that. But also, my heart is filled with a lot of thanks, and that's how I always love to start these out. So first thing out the gates for you is, what are you thankful for this week?
So it's summer break from school here in Brazil, and we're in the southern hemisphere. So my daughter's been home from school for almost a month now, and I work from home, and I'm so grateful that I can open my office door and she's right there. Or if I have a couple hours that we're not doing anything, I don't have a meeting online, or I don't need to get a document out, etc., I can be like, hey, you want to go grab some lunch? Yeah, let's go grab some lunch, Mom. So I'm really grateful for having this time with her because, she's 17. Your viewers don't know, but she's 17. And
that's so wild.
A child who was always right there is not right there always anymore. But during this summer break, I've been thinking about that a lot and really grateful to have her close and be able to, still have her under my wing and my roof and share time with her.
What a gift.
Yeah,
time flies. 17 is wild. I mean, it's not like I've seen her a lot, but I definitely remember meeting her when she was really, really young.
Really,
and it's
really
just
little. Right?
It's gone so quick. I'm not even going to go there because I got little girls and that looms over my head every day. I'm like, they're getting older and they're not even that old. And I'm like, how old are you now? What in the world is happening? Oh, gosh. So what have you been learning lately?
So this is a big question, right? Because I have a lot of learning curves going on, as probably a lot of us do. But
Yeah.
I wanted to answer in a way that was more of an internal, knowledge, self-knowledge building skill rather than an awareness, rather than, oh, I'm learning, to administrate Jira or something like that, which is also true. But
Sure.
I am learning that to be okay with where I am, and why that's such a big deal for me is that throughout my whole life, I've had this impulse pushing me forward for change. Like, I used to reorganize my room every weekend when I was little, and like, I even still in work meetings, people be like, "Oh, this is your third costume change today." Like, I'll change my clothes many times a day, or I used to just change my job, change my country. And I used to take that feeling I would have that wanted me to change everything. I thought that it meant I had to change everything right now. And what I'm learning is that to be okay with where I am, to use that impetus that actually fuels creativity in a different level. It's okay to have that.
Right.
And it's good to have that. But I'm learning to channel it into things that can not take me out of where I am, and don't make me have the perspective of like, oh, this is awful. I can't have this as it. I can't accept the way this is. I need to change it. Or I'm so unhappy in Florianopolis, the city we live in, Brazil. I need to move to another city. Or if I could just, maybe get a different degree. I'm not really sure if, I used to have that voice a lot. I mean, to an extent that was not comfortable.
Right.
And it's been a long journey of transforming that impetus into fuel instead of locomotion, so that I can stay where I am,
Right.
and be okay with things, and even appreciate and realize how great it is. At the same time, know that I'm not exactly where I want to be in many ways, internally, externally, professionally, etc. But it's okay to still feel uncomfortable with that, and know that I can change it while I accept where I am.
Yeah. So you said you're reinvesting. Do you mind if I ask? Like, no, that's great. How are you taking that fuel, and in what areas or arenas are you reinvesting that need for change or creative space? I think I probably have a couple ideas, but I'd like for you to share, if you wouldn't mind, like how you reinvest and re-energize and rechannel that.
So one of the biggest things that I used to do, and I'm talking when I was much younger, before I had my daughter, was I would just move. I would move a lot. I'd get that like restless feeling, and I'd be like, okay, time for a new apartment, time for a new city, time for a new job, time for a new country. And
Enter
literally,
Brazil. There you go.
enter India, enter Venezuela, enter Colombia, all these
Wow.
things.
Yeah.
And now how I'm clearly I've actually lived in Florianopolis longer than Ballietsville, which is where Jason and I grew up, my brother. So I've been here a total.
We love you, Jason. What a throwback.
Jason.
I'm going to interrupt because I saw a photo the other day, and it was at our house in Charlotte, and it was my dad in the middle, you on his left, and Jason on his right, and it was right there by our driveway. And oh man, I just sat there and smiled ear to ear. I was like, what three beautiful, amazing people. So we love you, Jason. Sorry, back to you. Sorry to interrupt, but that was just, I love that.
No,
Dude.
it's all good. So you asked what specific ways am I channeling that? And I've been here a long time, right? So it's been years that I've said to myself, oh, it's just temporary. I want to leave. And recently my daughter brought this conversation to me that she may want to stay here for college. And which on one hand, it's free if she gets into the federal university. It's great. It's safe here. We have a great life here, So anyway, I'm channeling it into into building gratitude just as a daily practice. So that fuel that says, oh, you want to change anything? Okay. Look around you and change the things that you're not being grateful for and you're not recognizing, and recognize them. And it's been a very conscious practice. Another is, on a more practical note, health issues. I don't have any major health issues, but for example, there's a little tick there. There's a surgery I need for my toe, being a professional dancer for so many years. And I've decided that all of these things are okay. I've been living with them, right? But at the same time, I know I need to change them, and it's still okay the way they are, right? And I'm growing into, I mean, I'm sort of answering both questions at the same time. I'm going back to question one a little bit, but
They're connected, though. I love it.
they're connected a little bit, right? Yeah, so putting that like I was saying, into my own health and understanding that, you know, I'm growing as a person, but yet I have all these issues that I need to deal with.
Right.
As far as like I'll go into detail. I
Please do.
don't know if you know, but I was a classical Indian dancer for a long time. So I actually went to India. I went because I just Googled when Google was first a thing. I was actually
When was
here
that you went there?
I went
How
in
long
2000.
ago?
It was almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in October that we went.
wow.
And we stayed 6 months. So I was actually here in Brazil. I had just started dating my daughter's dad, who lived here in Florianopolis. And we were all talking about going to India. So I was like, well, if I go to India, I don't want to just backpack around India. I had already done a lot of backpacking, and I was already dancing professionally and teaching and doing performances and conventions and stuff. And I was like, I want to study dance if I go to India, clearly, you know, and singing. So I Googled, when Google was a baby, how to study classical dance in India. And because I was Googling in English, clearly it gave me English responses. But I found this woman who was from California, about my age, who had gone to India to study dance and ended up moving there and opening a dance school in this ancient temple in the town of Pushkar in Rajasthan. So I found her website, reached out to her, and you know, a few months later, I was over there studying in her school. So yeah, that'll be 20 years at the end of the year.
That's so.
So
wild.
Anyway, it's so wild. Those dances,
In a good way. That's awesome.
Yeah, those dances are all done barefoot, mostly on concrete. And if this is your foot, there's a lot of this motion where you know, you arch the toes back and you stomp, because we use weighted bells on the ankle, which are weighted, and so there's a lot of stomping on concrete with bare bended toes. And I developed, I don't know if this is how you say it in English. In Portuguese, it's hallux rigidus. It's like where your big toe cartilage just gets worn down to the point where you can't bend your big toe without excruciating pain.
Yeah.
So that surgery I have to do for like 4 years. And I just ice it, I put it off, I don't run, you know, things like this. And I'm like, you know,
Maybe not the best way to approach it.
I'm sort of learning that this is probably something that even though it's okay to be where I am, right? It's probably something I need to address. So,
man, I think I'm learning the same thing too. Like the older I get, the less I'm letting go of my stubborn will to not address things that I really probably should for health holistically. And I think, yeah, for you young bucks and young gals out there, maybe take a lesson from Sara on this one. Like if you're feeling a sort of way and your body's not feeling 100%, listen and take care of it. When you get older, it's going to start to betray you more and more. So just stay healthy. And if you need to get stuff fixed, don't wait. Do it when you can recover quickly. Because it's like you have nothing to prove. The only thing that's going to do is limit you and make you feel uncomfortable, and just like let modern medicine and ways of healing yourself actually help you, please.
And you know, related to that, something which I think about all the time, because the reason I put off my surgery over and over, it's not money. We have a free hospital system here. I could have had this done years ago. We also have health insurance. It's that I'm alone with my daughter. And that surgery is 2 weeks with the foot elevated, right? With no weight. You can't bear weight for 2 weeks. So I always in my head give myself this idea that, oh, you have to put it off until she's older. You have to put it off until mom can come down from the States or something, right? That you have support. So another thing for the young ones is make sure that your support system is intact so that you can take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that someone
we can't go it alone. That's for sure. Oh, it's so hard.
That is a lesson that, you know, I think I'm still really, really drilling into my thick head.
Me too. Yeah, whatever. I do my best. I try not to be stubborn, but I'm not the best
Yeah,
at
I
it.
am very stubborn. I'm a very lone wolf sort of person, and I try
Yeah,
not to be, but it's hard, and it gets you into some situations, that could be
it's true.
avoided if you opened up a little
It's
more.
true. Well, yeah, we won't say it's a bad thing. Let's just view it as a strength. Like if it's well balanced, it's good. If it's underused, probably not good. If it's overused, probably not
Absolutely.
healthy. So strike a good chord in there. Yeah. Be stubborn a little bit. Be self-determined. Yeah, but like, don't be a knucklehead. That's not helpful. I can say
Absolutely.
I'm a knucklehead sometimes. I'll be honest. Whatever. It's okay. So hopefully, I know it's single mom life is a busy life for you and you got a lot going on, but hopefully you can
Yeah.
find time for rest and time to reflect. I think you are a very reflective person, but as hopefully you're finding space for that, what's an area of your life where you are most focused on actually growing and transforming? And I ask that because like we talked about this a little bit, but it's important to
Yeah.
remind people like I like to enter these conversations very methodically with everybody, the same thing, like starting with gratitude. And that really opens the door for now I'm grateful, now I'm learning. I think it just shifts the mindset for a whole conversation. And this is a good way, like maybe take cues. If you're talking with someone and you don't know where to start and you're clunky and awkward, just be like, ask these sorts of questions of people to start a conversation. It starts it off positively. Hey, what are you thankful for today? Are you learning anything new? Like, hey, how are you trying to transform or grow in your life? It's a really good transition into some more deep, meaningful conversations. But I think it's probably a really strong way to start a conversation, and you can listen and learn, but also it just sets the posture for maybe more of a positive arc for where you're going. But all of that
Absolutely.
framework aside, like for you, how are you trying to grow and transform in this season in your life?
So you mentioned I'm a single mom, right? And we just told the viewers that my daughter's 17. She'll be
Mm,
entering her senior year in February. So we have one more year of, the routine of she's home and she's studying and her full-time job is school and senior
right.
year is that doubled, right? So I stayed home with my daughter for over 10 years. I mean, I had a little
Wow.
part-time job for my dad and brother's company for a few years that I could do in the morning from home. It was very minimal. But
Hmm.
school also in Brazil is half day. So her school schedule from kindergarten until last year was 7 a.m. until about 12:15.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't have a lot of money for a long time, so I would be constantly making lunch, doing the shopping, doing all the cleaning myself, etc. It was very little time. All the mothers, I don't need to, I'm preaching to the choir here.
Sure.
Um, but because of that, and because I just have one daughter, and she had one adult at home, it was very intense, a lot of time together, right? I was playmate, I was the driver, I was the caregiver, I was the bath giver, I was the cook, I was the laundry doer, I was the everything,
Yeah.
the homework assistant, everything. But now she's entering senior year, so I've been reflecting a lot about where I want to grow and transform after she leaves the nest, which if we stay in Brazil, she'll stay with me for college because that's
Sure.
sort of the Brazilian system. Most kids do
Hmm.
stay at home when they're going to college, if they stay in the city, which is pretty common. Anyway, I am growing into, and I don't have the answer yet, what this is going to look like.
Hmm.
But I'm growing into how I want to serve and how I want to move through the world where my major identity and role, I wouldn't say my major identity, my major role is not care provider and mother. It's still going to be my major identity, which is why I took that apart because, it is the thing I'm most proud of. Besides being a loving daughter and sister, I'm most proud of being a loving mother. Um, so that'll never come off, my identity. But
Right.
how I move through the world is completely changing.
Yeah.
And I really don't know what I want to do. I know I'm not going to go back to teaching dance, and that chapter of my life is closed. And it's not a sad thing. It's a very good thing, and it was a wonderful, almost 20 years of my life.
Right.
Um, and in my work that I'm doing right now, it's great, and I love it, and provides for us, and it's interesting, and it helps me grow. But it also is not my soul work.
Mm.
So I'm very dedicated to finding out and I say this like who my soul wants to be now,
Right.
because I think the soul is something so, first of all, ambiguous, because it means something different to every person depending on
Sure.
their upbringing, religion,
Yeah.
way of belief system, everything. um, but the soul is something to me that can have so many different forms in the world, right? And so much different meaning. So I've been really looking in, like, how do I want to grow meaning after, my daughter's a grown woman, a young woman,
Right.
out in the world and doing her own thing. Like, where do I want to touch plants and, provide medicine? Do I want to talk to people more? And do I want to keep creating art in some way? Do I want to become a IT girl? All
Yeah.
of these things. And it really feels like a rebirth, as
Yeah.
big as having a baby was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like as huge as those first nights when you realize, like, there's your child, this
Right.
third being another being that is in your house now, instead of, as a mother in your belly.
Yeah.
It's just as big of a transition. And we don't talk about that much. Like, we say empty nesters and whatnot, but I don't think that people, at least I haven't heard, a lot of people give, like, the proper weight to that transition, especially for a
I'll tell you
mother.
what, we have as much time as you need. So, like, I want to say this. I say this to everyone, but, like, this used to be like a shorter form, and I used to try and keep it short and snappy. And then people are like, "Man, some of the people you have on are just amazing souls," and just, like, let it go where it goes. So, whatever you land on, if you're good with it, I'm just gonna press in a little bit and be like, "Well, let's talk about it then." So, like, you have the floor, and your voice is the most important thing to me right now. So I'm going to circle back to another question I heard in a second that you said, but for that one, while you're on it, what don't we talk about enough? Like, what do people need to hear from you? Because I can't even overstate how much I respect and honor you as a woman and as a mother.
So nice. I really,
And I
that's
mean
such
that because, like, your mother and Aunt Julia is just, like, such a
oh
dear
my
soul. And I love hearing you talking about, like, how you want to evolve in your soul and what you want to be now and what you want that to grow into, and you don't even know. But there's so many things that just resonate when I think of your mother. Of course, it's just a loving, dear, kind heart and soul, but also, like, one of the most brilliant mathematicians I've ever known. Like, just her intellectual skill is unmatched in my mind. And I used to hear my dad talk about his sister all the time, just, like, with so much love for her. But then also just the conversations that we can have, like, it's so raw and honest and respectful of just where are you in life as a person, and seeing other people and wanting to really lean in and be with and partner with the people you love. And I love that about your mom. And just, yeah, the green thumb, she loves to garden and plant, and just,
Yeah.
there's so many beautiful qualities about her. And I would say, I would earmark your mother as an incredibly virtuous woman, because she has so many strong virtues that I
She
think
does.
men, women, children, anyone walking the face of this earth could look at your mother and learn so much, just like you could from her mother or from our family. So I want to honor you in that you are a very strong woman, and whatever you want to land on today, I've got all night for you. Like, let's go there. So what don't we know that we need to hear more about in that space? Like, if you're willing to share, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I was specifically talking about the transition from the empty nest phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
And how deep of a transition. Like, we always talk about, for a woman, like, the three phases of the woman's life, right? What is it, like the damsel, the maiden, and the crone? Before, when you're a young kid, before you have a child, and then motherhood, and then elderly age. But we don't really talk about the transitions as much. And I'm, like I said, going through this transition. I mean, my daughter's still here with me, but it's on the horizon, right?
Yeah.
Adulthood is on the horizon for her, and for me, for us, right? So I think I do have. I think because I went so far away from my own parents and my own mother, it's created a desire for that not to happen with me and my daughter. I tell her this all the time, like, please don't do that to me, what I did to my parents. And not in a way that it was bad. It's what I needed. I have kept in great touch with them.
Right.
But I'm not sure that I'm equipped to handle it, and maybe in a few years that will all change and be like, you know what, Sarah, you got that. It's fine. Lumi's living in Australia now, and it's okay. But right now, I do not feel equipped for that. So I tell her all the time, like, please don't go so far away. Please don't live on another continent. Like, the world is not as not, I wouldn't say safe, but the world is not as certain as it was 20 years ago when I did these things,
That's fair.
But I don't think we talk about how painful it is. We like to focus on, oh, it's so great, the kid, and you don't want to dim out the excitement of your child's life, right?
Right.
So there's not really a way to talk about that in a place where, like, they might not hear it as a restriction on their freedom.
Right.
And it's hard to talk about, and a lot of my friends, not to down them in any way, but with older kids, they're like, oh, finally, they're gone.
No.
They're out of the house. And I don't even know how someone can feel that way. I don't feel that way. And I look
I
back
love that you said that.
I don't get it.
I see that a lot with people too, and I'm not throwing stones in a glass house at them or anything. It's just, not that my daughters are old, but I just don't resonate with that. In my heart, I can't imagine. And I'm not saying it won't shift, who knows? But right now, I can't imagine, I can't even comprehend that thought. Like, no way. I don't know.
I can't either. And speaking of my mom, just to go back to that, we had a pretty weird situation because my brother and I were one academic year apart. He's almost 2 years older than me, but because of how our birthdays fall, there was just one school year between us. And when he graduated his senior year, my parents split up the beginning of that year. So my dad was in Washington, D.C., and the three of us, my mom, my brother, and myself, were in Pennsylvania still, where we grew up. And then after senior year, my brother went down to college in Washington, D.C. And I knew that this is something I'll circle back to, but I was very bullied in high school. So because of that, my parents talked about it, and they decided that I could go live with my dad for my senior year. So I stayed during the summer with my mom. My brother was already in DC getting set up, and he was working with my dad before college. It was just me and my mom. And I remember missing my brother so much and telling my mom all the time and crying and this whole thing. And then I was preparing to leave. And all my mom was doing was supporting me. I do not recall ever her expressing to me that she was sad about it, that she was worried for me. She was only supporting, like, in a way that didn't feel distant. It just felt like she was doing exactly what I had just mentioned, like not trying to dampen my excitement and my happiness about my future. And I remember the day, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can tell this story without crying, but I'm going to try. I remember the day I was leaving. I was only 16 because I graduated like newly 17, so I was 16. I was driving with all my stuff in my car, and I was tailing, caravanning down with a family friend who lived in D.C. but had a house near us in Pennsylvania. So he was going to drive, and I was following him. And my mom followed me in her car to the grocery store where we were all meeting up. It was me in my car, my mom in her car, and this guy whose name I can't remember right now was in his car, a family friend. I'll remember in a second, Rick. And so my mom got out of the car, and I was saying goodbye to her. I mean, imagine I was leaving my mom's house. My mom was going to be a total empty nester, a single woman, empty nester, no real support system.
Right.
And I gave my mom a hug, and with all the excitement in the world, left. And I think about that all the time, of like, that's how I left my mom's house. Initially, it wasn't with any sort of statement of like, thank you for everything you've done for me. or
Yeah.
I'm going to miss you so much. It was bye. And it
Right.
wasn't because of my mom. Like my mom and I weren't, and
Yeah.
it wasn't because of tensions with my mom. It was just because that's what I needed to do
Hmm.
for my mental health and my growth and my well-being.
Yeah.
And I look back on that all the time and I think like how painful that must have been for mom. And knowing my mom now as an
Mm.
adult, I know how painful that was for her. We've
Yeah.
talked about this moment,
Sure.
we've talked about that following year, how hard it was for her to transition. And now circling back, 25 years or probably more than that, I'm really bad at math. Not like my mom.
It was some years ago. Who knows?
Years ago, um, we talk about that, and that my daughter's in that year,
Right.
between 11th and 12th grade. We talk about that, and I ask her a lot for advice on like how do you move through the empty nest transition.
Right.
And that's who I most lean into, is the very woman that, you know, I pulled away from because you have to fly on your own,
Yeah.
child. But as a mother or as a father, I'm sure it's a different flavor and similar feelings, right? It's that the pain part about it, of the pain of detachment, because there is pain involved in it. We don't
Hmm.
want to talk about that, or not want to, but there's not really a real stage, a place to talk about that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Thank you.
we don't
Well,
need to go too much further into it, but thank
no,
you
but
for.
thank you for sharing that. And I would just echo back from one dad's heart. I'm only one man, so who knows where this lands, but this is Josh's heart, right? I am the biggest sap when it comes to my kids. And people are like, oh, it's because you have little girls. Like, I think it's just because I'm a parent. Because my dad was really good about showing love and showing vulnerability, and he was
Your
such a
dad just
strong man.
snapped too.
But dad was a sap. He showed his heart, and I think that's a beautiful thing, and it really showed me. He modeled what being a good father is for me, to the children especially. But I told Arya this the other day. Like, I was sitting in the living room with the three girls, and we were just playing a board game together, and I just started tearing up. And she looked at me. She goes, "Dad, are you okay?" And I'll probably tear up as I say this. And I said, "Baby, I don't know how to tell you this, but I said, I think it's possible to miss someone so much, and you can reach out and touch them right now." And I said, I looked at all three of you, and that's what my heart feels. I said, you're such a young girl, but I already miss you so much. I said, and I know part of that comes with dad's gone, and I appreciate the brevity of life, and I appreciate the fleeting moments in time, and I really value and want to pour my heart into, like, my main job is just being a great husband and a great daddy, and that's it. Everything else is a byproduct of, like, my real calling in life, and I believe that's it. That's how I am. But I just told her, I said, I want you to know that, like, I'm not trying to be sad or sappy. I love you girls so much, and I appreciate that this won't always be here. And I said, and I talk to her like she's an intelligent person, because she is. I said, and the best sign of me being a good dad is the older you get, the less you're going to need me to be successful in life. And that's a hallmark of me being a good father. And I said, and that hurts me because you're my baby, and I want you to always need me. But I actually don't. And I said, and that's a really hard thing for me. And I told her, I said, I am having to grow so much as I watch you grow. And me as a person is having to grow and develop and change, like, my appreciation for who I am as a person. And I love how you framed it earlier. I'm not losing my identity, but I'm having to shift maybe my focus and how I'm transforming and the space I'm evolving into. And that has to happen, because if I get stuck, and if I stay stuck in the era of 6-year-old Arya 3 years ago as opposed to 9-year-old Arya, I'm not serving Arya well as a 9-year-old, almost 10-year-old now.
That's right.
So I can't be stuck in the past, but man, sometimes I miss it. So yeah, and I think that's a thing. Like, I was like, and I told her, I said, how can I miss someone so much that's right here with me? I miss you already, and I can look at you right now. I said, and I don't know how to explain it, but I just need you to know I love you. That's good enough. Just know I love you. That's what I'm trying to say. She's like, okay, Dad, I love you too. But I think that hearing you reflect back on your mom, and really now as a mother, I've told Laura this, my wife, a lot. I'm like, man, I have such a newfound appreciation for being a parent and such a newfound appreciation for my parents and the difficulties and the imperfections and the things they just crushed and the things they struggled with. And I think for people that are listening too, if you are fortunate enough to still even be in any semblance of communication or relationship with your parents at all, and they're willing to hear from you or you're willing to reach out to them, reach out and say thank you. And reach out and say thank you and I love you because you were my parent. And I know whatever you did, it was from your heart. Because as a parent now, I go like, oh my God, I hope I hear that one day. I pray that one day they don't just want to run off from me and that they'll actually like. And so, yeah, it is the sap. I guess I got that from my old man, but it's like you really value what it's like when you actually have to walk in those shoes. It's so much.
I always think sometimes, I love that, everything you said, and it's so true. We really, I mean, at least in my experience, I really only understood, what my parents gave, how much of
Look what you're doing to me already. Come on.
No.
It's good.
I have that effect in people. It was only through having a daughter of my own. And I wonder a lot of times, like people who choose to not have children or cannot have children or for whatever reason, grow up, not grow up, but become elderly and without children. I wonder how they gain that insight, that clarity, that understanding of what, because I don't have that experience. I'm sure there are ways to gain it that aren't through being a parent yourself, oneself.
Sure.
But for me, it sort of seemed like it was the only way. Mm-hmm. I always say, my daughter saved my life, and I really believe she did. Not that my life was going in such a terrible direction, or I wasn't in danger of, taking my own life or anything, but she saved my life in that she really gave it meaning. I resonate so deeply with what you said, that like your true calling is to be the best father and husband. I'm not a wife, but my true calling is to be the best mother I can be. And a lot of people might hear that and think like, oh, that's so old school, or that's so limiting. You could be, you're giving so much to the world, but what else could I give to the world that's more valuable than a sane, loving, and kind human being who's going to do right by others? Like, I'm not
There's
sure
nothing
what
better.
else.
It's not. I can't name it. I can't think of it. And there's no higher calling than just like truly investing in giving, regardless of what people think or their views, like giving a small human a proper moral compass and a proper worldview through which to love and respect and show kindness, just all of the good virtues and things that they can pour out into the world and carry with them, and really shoring that up. And from the moment that child is born, as long as you're blessed to have them underneath your charge and care, there is no greater calling. There is no more important calling. There is no more risky of a calling, more frustrating and just drive you off a cliff sometimes of a calling. Like all of the things are bottled up in that thing. But good Lord, I wouldn't want to do anything else. And I think for me, I believe that being a father has made me 100 times over a better man, a better leader, because when my target audience of how I communicate and how I handle people is either how I would treat my daughters or treat someone like my daughters are right next to me about to copy what I do, when that is my litmus test and my target I'm aiming at, it's really hard to miss being a good person if you really care about doing that well. That's my audience for all of these podcasts, is like, I hope I'm simple enough and thoughtful enough to where like my 9-year-old could listen to this and she would take something away from it. So like, it's the litmus test for my life, is being the dad that I should be. And of course I love Laura, but she's a grown adult. It's not like I'm trying to raise and develop her, but like with her, raising them is everything. And I think it just simplifies things for me. It simplifies my communication. It hones in what I'm trying to do. And it really tries to keep me pure at heart for like my intent, because I have 3 little maniac girls that are my intent in everything. So it's like, I don't think we could stay here long enough on this topic, because it is. I do. My heart goes out to those that maybe can't have children or if they don't want to. But, to answer your question, I actually don't know if it's humanly possible to really grasp fully what the gifts are of parenting void of being a parent. And I say that respectfully to those
Right.
who can't or don't want to, but I in my heart can't imagine any other way me as a crusty dude could have got those hard edges knocked off without a child to care for. I couldn't have done it for myself.
I feel the same way, and that's exactly how I felt like for myself, why I say my daughter saved my life, because that
Yeah.
part of my heart needed to be expressed in the world. I needed to feel, and I don't know how else I could have, aside from being, a crusty, a crusty chick, whatever.
Right? You
Got
know?
there. No, I could have gotten there, and I
Dude,
was already someone who had a spiritual practice before becoming a mother. I was already
Sure.
someone who, it's not like I was checked out or,
Yeah.
something, but it just really is a game changer.
And I'll tell you what else I don't hear a lot of people talking about. Well, some do, but they say it in jest. But seriously, like, you are so quickly held to task and held accountable for what you actually say you believe and the way you actually behave based on your
Yeah.
beliefs when you're around children. Because they will
Yeah.
ask some hard effing questions and they won't pull any punches. And if you really care about teaching them, you can't pull the wool over their eyes. And
Yeah,
my
you can't.
older two, even the 3-year-old sometimes ask me stuff. I'm like, whoa, how did you pull that question out of your 3-year-old brain? But if I really, sometimes I've been like, I need to sit here and think about my answer before I give it to you. And it's not like I doubt what I believe or what I think I want to pursue with them as a dad or as a family. But like, you're really taking me back to the drawing board. I need to be thoughtful what I say to you because you're really leaning in. You're trying to learn. So it is humbling how much they ask me stuff. I'm like, no adults ever asked me that. That's really good. Why do I say that? Why do I think that? Oh, you really care to know. Oh, man. I just can't give lip service to my life. I really need to know what I think. Whoa.
Yeah.
So I think like kids bring that to the top every day with me. My 3 girls, I'm like, y'all are ridiculous. Sometimes I just got to shut them down and be like, that's too much. I can't handle it right now. But it's so
Yeah,
challenging for me. I don't know how you are
It's-
with a 17-year-old, but dude, it is nonstop.
It's nonstop. That's one of the parts that gets more difficult, right? The diapers go away, but the emotional side and the questions and the accountability just grows and grows.
Yeah.
I remember what you were saying reminded me of something, and this is such a strange example. But the tooth fairy, right? It's a thing. Your daughters aren't going to see this for a while, right? Like not until they're older, because I don't want
Yeah,
to
I don't know.
spoil any.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Can I talk about the tooth fairy?
You can talk about whatever you want. They're good.
Okay. Because
You're fine.
the tooth fairy, right? I used to love being the tooth fairy. I have to confess. So, losing a tooth, that's pretty monumental. And a new
Oh, yeah.
tooth growing in, it's so huge, right?
Right.
And I would get so excited and I'd put the little, whatever it was, whether it was like gummies and a couple dollars or hay eyes in our case, the Brazilian hay eyes. And I remember when my daughter found out that there was no tooth fairy and that I was the tooth fairy. And it was through school that she found out. One of her classmates, or she overheard someone, I don't remember exactly how, but she
Right.
found out from, someone that it was mom. And she wrote me a letter with a drawing on it of me going in to her bed and like putting the money under the pillow. And she wrote a letter with it and she put it on my bed and it said something, I don't remember verbatim, but this was the gist. I'm really upset that you lied to me about something that was so important to me, like the tooth fairy. But I understand why you did it, because you were trying to keep a really beautiful tradition alive. So I forgive you. I still have that in my stuff. I was like, oh, whoa. Let's talk about that accountability of like.
Talk about a sniper to the heart, dude. Oh my gosh. Good job, Lumi.
It was like, on one hand, I was really proud when I got that.
Right.
Because, like, look at her level of awareness, She was a little
That's
girl
amazing.
and she wrote that and took the time to draw the scene, not just write me or tell me.
Kids are
She
so
just
creative.
did it.
I love that side of children. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
But
I've
the
gotten.
accountability it gets huge. It gets monumental.
It does. I've gotten one more thing and then we'll move on. I've gotten a note from Aria recently too, but Aria's like, they're all creative, but Aria loves to draw and she loves to give gifts and
She's
she
9,
loves to,
right?
She's 9.
9.
Yeah. Yeah, they're 9, 7. Alessia is 7, and Karina's 3. She'll be 4 in
Okay.
May. So 9, 7, and 3. But Aria is just, she's left-handed. She's creative. She sort of fits all of those boxes of just being sort of like the very, like, loves abstract thinking and puzzles and building with magnet tiles and drawing. And she got a little knitting loom, so she's been knitting scarves and hats. And the other day she started a scarf, and then with some like wool yarn, she started knitting the scarf on her loom, and then she maybe got like 5 inches into the scarf, and then she stopped. She goes, "Dad, I'm gonna make something new today." I said, "Okay." And then I came back maybe like an hour later, and she had already made so much progress. And I looked, I was like, "What are you making?" She goes, "I'm making a purse now, or like a bag." So she took it and she saw like, "Oh, it's only this long, and if I was to fold it in half and then stitch up the sides, and then I could finger knit the strap." And by the morning, she had made it for her friend at school and took it to her friend. So like in a few hours, she made this thing. Just in her mind's just like, "Oh, I could do this with it now." And like watching her creativity is so fun. But one day, she had done something, and she like, again, back to the honesty thing we were talking about a little before we clicked record. It's like, it's a big deal in our house. Like, be honest. Like, I'm going to honor honesty, but I don't want them to lie. I just want them to come, communicate with us, know that mom and dad are a safe spot. As you get older, you can say anything. If you make mistakes, like, I'm here for you. So I really take it hard on them to be honest when they lie. Like, that's a big deal in our family, as I think it should be. And so she had lied. Like, she wove a very intricate web of lies. And first of all, it was impressive. I was like, "You are like scary smart," but also that's not cool, because you did it to me, to your mom, to your teacher. Like, you pulled a lot of big players in your life that you want trust from, and you just like chopping it all down. And she felt so bad about it. I said, "Hey, I love you, but you are not getting off of this one scot-free, because you tried to backpedal and cover it. So like, there's going to be some consequences." And her heart is just so pure that she wasn't scrapping to try and like cover up and avoid whatever the consequences are. Like, she just really takes things to heart. And the next morning when I woke up, she had set on the kitchen counter. So she like got up in the middle of the night and did this, because I had heard something out there, and I was just like, whatever. Sometimes she gets up and gets water. She had gotten up, written me this note, and drawn a picture, and I still have it in my little chest where I keep things from them. And it was a picture of me and her, and she was like, it was like little stick figures, but sort of cute, pretty well done. So she drew glasses and like drew hair on me, and it was like holding hands, looking at each other with flowers and hearts. And it was this apology note of how she loved me so much, and her heart was so sad that she had lied to me and let me down, and she really hopes that I could forgive her, and I'm her favorite daddy, or something like that, which was just hilarious. Like, all these really just precious things. And it was just her heart's response was like, "I want to draw you a picture of what's inside of my heart, and I just want to leave it for you to find." And I just found it she didn't even give it to me. She just left it there on the kitchen table for breakfast for me, and it said "Daddy," and it was like in an envelope. And I was like, dude, there are like, every adult on earth just needs to take cues from you, because what a precious little soul. But when I heard you say like, Lumi drew this picture of the whole thing for you, like the whole crime scene of the Tooth Fairy.
In the same fashion, exactly.
She's like, her little mind movies are just like going to town, and she's drawing them, and it's like, I know we keep going on and on about our kids, but let's just pause and say, like, girls, whether it's Lumi or my 3 daughters, we love y'all so much. So
We love you.
if no one else were to ever listen to this ever, which I don't really care, like, I'm with my cousin and we're talking to family, and it's for y'all, and we love you. So yeah, y'all are the best. But we are going to move on, because today is all about prudence. And
Yes.
it's really important, I think, that as I have guests, everyone's going to have their own perspectives maybe about what something means. But before we start talking through this and hearing some of your story and how you unpack this for us, I really want to hear people understand your framework, because that's the lens we should all be watching and listening this through, is like the eyes and the heart of Sara. That's what I want to approach this from. So how would you define or frame prudence for those that are tuned in today?
So I actually wrote this down, and
Cool.
because it was so important, I thought about this for months. It's been months since you invited me to the podcast. Time to think about what is my frame, what is my take on prudence.
Yeah.
And it's the capacity to sense consequences and their impact, and then choose in a way that protects what's most sacred. It's sort of like textbook definition, not textbook definition, but that's my textbook definition.
That's beautiful. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
That's
It's
that's
the
beautiful.
capacity to sense consequences and their impact and choose in a way that protects what's most sacred. And so to elaborate on that, Prudence, I think it's sort of like a hot topic in the virtues, because it might not be looked at as one of the most important or one of the most like attractive virtues to, cultivate within oneself. But it's certainly the enabler of other virtues. It's what gives power to a lot of other virtues. And I think that it's one that we don't talk about that much nowadays. Like, you don't hear a bunch of people going around giving lectures on prudence, right? Most people think of prudence from that song, Dear Prudence. Maybe it's the only time I've heard the word.
Maybe.
We have other words that are more trendier and hot, right?
But I love the non-trendy words. I'm not gonna lie. We've talked
Me
about
too.
this. Like
I
the
do.
old meaning of words. Like, let's throw it back. Let's take it back. Some
Yeah.
they're good.
I agree. I just love that like the ability to really weigh the consequences of something and act according to them. Like, okay, here's the scenario. In every moment, we're actually doing this unconsciously, and we always are exercising some level of prudence, right? Otherwise known as judgment. Not
Sure.
always, but we're always exercising. Do I do this? Do I do that? And it's always based on whether consciously or biologically or unconsciously, we believe that's going to be the best choice, right? Whether it's how we're driving in the moment, how we're talking to our kid, how we're doing our job, how we're washing the dishes, right? We're always exercising some level. We don't throw the ceramic dishes into the dishwasher, right? Because we know it's going to break. Even though we might feel at that moment, just to go on that analogy, we might have a lot of energy, right? We might be like bursting to get out and take a run or go swim or whatever it might be, go to the gym. But we're not going to throw the ceramic dinnerware into the dish holder or into the dishwasher because we know it'll break. So we can't use that level of energy or that desire to move in that situation which involves ceramic, right? Or something that's breakable. And prudence is like that in your life. Like, you have to look around you and say, what's breakable in this situation? Is it something that needs to break down? And so you might need to be, a little forceful. Prudence can lead you to make a decision, a tough decision, or to say something that isn't comfortable, right? Because sometimes we tend to sometimes think, I think there's this idea that prudence is always restrictive, like it's always about holding back, but it's not always about holding back. It can be what takes, what makes honesty be spoken instead of, I'm going to just hold back. No, it's that ability to sense the consequence, whether we do something or not. Like, if I don't do this, what is the negative consequence? Does it bring a more beneficial situation, or does it actually cause some damage if I withhold?
Yeah.
It's such a
really
vast
good.
topic.
No, we're going there, and man, my mind, the gears are spinning everywhere. I'm going to hold the space for your voice, but I just want to, if you don't mind, I'm going to share something that made me think as soon as you said this, and I think it's powerful the way you framed that. So thank you for your definition of it, because I haven't heard it that way, and it's very rich. I can tell you took thought and care to make it concise and precise. No, it's concise and precise, but it's the heart of you, and that's so beautifully said. But I love that, whether you meant to do this or not, you gave an example of the care that we might give to a thing. And I always try to think of things in order of, like, my heart is that I care about people, and then ideas, and then things, in that order. All are important, but it should be in that order precedentially in my heart. Like, people, and then the ideas that they hold, and then things that come from it, sure. But how often, I wonder, and I'll just ask this of listeners, give a pregnant pause, and then we're going to move on from it. And don't answer it, and we aren't going to talk about it too much right now, maybe later. But how often do we say people matter, but if I was to watch our behavior or watch my own behavior, do I care more about a ridiculous ceramic dish not getting broken than shattering the people's lives around me. So what we value and hold dear is so inversely proportionate to what it should be. And we are just ready to blow up relationships without using prudence and maybe good discernment or decision making. There's a lot of synonyms, but prudence is the word, and I think it's such a beautiful one to use. So, like, how are we not showing prudence in the decisions that affect the people more than we do about a ridiculous plate or glass that we wash every day? And that picture and that analogy, because I love to think in analogies, just like that really struck my heart right now when you said that, because like we're so quick to protect something that's replaceable, and sometimes at the expense of blowing up something you'll never get back, which is some of the people. So, man, you're taking us there. Oh my goodness.
True.
So true.
It's so true, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, that you brought that up. You know, I agree that it's. I mean, I'm not sure anyone would disagree that of that order of value, people, their ideas and things. You know, I would stick animals up there with people because they're people too.
I agree. I love animals. Dogs are the best friends of. Dogs have been my best friend way more than some people. I'm going to be honest.
My daughter and I assign animals to every person we know based on their characteristics, like their personality. By the way,
oh God, dare I ask what mine is?
You're a koala. You're a koala bear.
How is? Ooh, this is. Well, we're going there. What's up?
Very bearish because you're sort of rugged, but you're also very sweet and you're very reflective. And bears are, and they're very protective of your family. And bears are known for, like, first of all, you're in Norway right now, right? But bears are also known for sitting on the edge of nature and like reflecting on things. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you knew that, but they're one of the like few animals that science or whatever has proven that they take like meditative pauses in their day.
I've seen photos of it and it's so cute.
It's so cute, right? My mom, by the way, is a border collie. Because she's a dog because she's just so loyal and sweet and amazing, and she's very intelligent. So we put her as
boundless energy. Yes, all of the above.
Boundless energy, absolutely.
So hold on. Now that we're going there, what's yours and Lumi's then?
Well, I fight against mine, even though she assigned me Tiger, which I think it does, personality-wise, sort of represent me. I don't like that I'm a cat because they're kind of hunters, you know, and I'm not really. But at the same time, I do think that she's like, no, it's just based on appearance. And I'm like, well, wait, most people's aren't based on appearance. They're based on their personality. So why is mine? It's like, well, no, it's because tigers are very independent and you're very independent. Tigers are really courageous and they do stuff that no one else would do. I'm like, okay, well, that part, maybe I am.
Well, Karina loves Raja from Aladdin. That's her new favorite animal. So maybe there you go.
Oh, nice.
So what's your daughter's? What do you associate to?
We haven't actually. She will not accept one label. So she's like the only person who doesn't have a set category. She's still looking. In fact, the other night we were sitting there watching a movie, and we started to go through a group of like her newer friends who didn't have the assignments, and I revisited hers. And I was like, are you sure? You're very deerish, you know? And she's like, no, I just don't know. I just can't settle. she doesn't have a set. Maybe
she should come visit Norway, and then maybe she'd be down with being like a reindeer or something. So it's like still reindeer. I don't know.
They're so mysterious.
Koala. I know they are. Koala. Maybe I should be more like a koala. I could use sleep, so maybe I just need to take a lot of naps.
What do they sleep a lot?
I don't know. Don't they just like aren't they like taking naps up in trees and eating? I don't know. Koala bear. I dig it. I like that. I've never been told I'm a koala bear, but I'll take that. That's awesome.
I didn't know. It's not like a done deal. We just talked about this before the podcast, and I'm the one who said, like, I think he's like a bear.
Oh, so she had this conversation with you? I can't wait to hear. Maybe she'll listen to this and change her mind. Lumi, I'm curious. You need to hit me up. Shoot me an Instagram message or something and tell me what you think afterwards. Then,
she follows you on Instagram.
I know. Am I still a koala? That's cool, though. I'll take it. Koalas are cool. Bears are cool, I guess. Rock on. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, bears are awesome. I love bears.
They're so cool. I love it.
So let's bring it back. Bring it back to what we were. Why I brought the animal things up, right? The hierarchy of people, people and animals, their ideas and things. And I guess why I use the ceramic idea is just to show that like we're all breakable too, right? And I clearly it wasn't just referring to, things,
Right.
but it's also a very good analogy to show that it could just be looked at as restraint or discernment, but it's really sort of the essence of prudence. Like, what is going to happen with the desire in me if I use it in this certain way in this certain situation? How do I need to channel my impulses, and the not, because it's not just impulses, right, that propel us. There's the internal motivators, the external motivators that bring our energy into action. So how do I need to channel that in this specific situation to bring the best possible benefit? That's something that I'm always asking myself. I don't have a religion, but I definitely have a very strong spirituality and ethical, philosophy that I base my life on. And one of the things that I'm always asking myself, and that I fail in a lot, but it's always one of my sort of commandments to myself is ask yourself how you can be of the most benefit to the most beings in this situation. And if it's sometimes by not being there at all, then I won't show up.
Hey.
Just to make light of it. But I think that Prudence asks us that, how can you take a step back? It requires a lot of executive function, right?
Oof. It sure does.
Right?
And hearing you say that, hearing you say that about the way you view prudence with the example of the restraint and the judgment, in my mind, again, like the way you say things just paints really beautiful pictures. And so I'm going to unpack this a little bit the way I'm hearing it anyway, because I think it's just useful to I hope people are listening and leaning in and in their own mind, writing down and reflecting in their own mind's eye, what is this bringing to the surface for me? Because I will say this, I've talked to you a lot and we talked before this, but you have a very good way of communicating things in a very creative manner. And that's a skill and that's a gift too. I know you are a very creative person, and whether it come through dance and music, but I love having that space. Having a woman who is very artistic in her heart, that's when you can get someone who articulates that well, it paints a really good picture that people can latch onto. So for me, it's just resonating that, prudence is almost assimilating all of this information, all of these emotions, all of these things that are immediate, then hopefully applying some experience and some knowledge you've gained, and then pushing all of those through a filter. And the backside of that, if you're running it through this filter of prudence, becomes wisdom. So I think it's very closely coupled with wisdom to choose wisely, but you have to run it through this filter of a good set of hard questions to yourself of who do I want to be in this moment? What influence am I trying to have in this space? And sometimes you do need to have prudence to choose something that might not be popular, but it's tethered to your identity and your purpose. And you say, prudence isn't going to look popular right now, but I believe this is the prudent choice because this is who I am and I won't back down from it. Or it might be sidestepping something and going I don't need to be there because that would not, I know my emotions are going to take over. So it's really taking a breath to take a beat and go, I've really got to understand what my purpose is here and take all of these things very quickly. Like you said, that executive functioning is rapid fire sometimes, and then go oof, hopefully through experience we get better at it. But it's so coupled to decision making, discernment, judgment, wisdom. But I think wisdom is the fruit that you reap of having a prudent thought process in my heart.
That's really pretty verbiage you just said. Wisdom.
Well, it was yours. That's just how I heard it.
Wisdom is the fruit that you reap from exercising prudence.
It really
and one
is.
of the things that I was thinking while you were saying all of those beautiful, well thought out and meaningful words about prudence, I just love this topic. I'm so enjoying this.
I'm so glad we're here today together. This is so good.
Yeah, me too. It's so fun. It's one of the all of the virtues take patience and time to cultivate, right? But prudence is something that has to happen a lot of times very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? Situations can happen. And if we haven't cultivated that in our inner being as a practice ahead of time, and this could be said of certainly more virtues, but it's
Sure.
one that can have like really severe consequences if we don't exercise that type of, because it's that, you know, truth without prudence, right, can really hurt. Right? There's sometimes where don't someone doesn't need to, it's not the most beneficial or benevolent thing to do is to speak
Right.
our entire mind to someone about them or about a certain situation. There are things that I think that spirit or our hearts want us to withhold, and that it would be best to withhold in certain situations. And if we, so we can say like, oh, honesty is a virtue. Yes, honesty is a virtue. Absolutely. We have to be honest. And see people say, oh, you're withholding information. Okay, maybe I'm withholding information, but maybe that was prudent, you know. And
I
so,
know. You want to hear the way
like,
your Uncle
difference.
Joe, my dad, used to say that to me? I
Yeah,
love the wisdom that he would unpack. He'd say, hey, buddy, you should always speak in truth, but you don't always have to speak all truth that you know at the same time. And that's being very discerning. And that was the word
absolutely.
he would associate to it. And I think it just couples very neatly with what you just said. So, and I think
Absolutely.
it's good to teach my children that. Like, I don't want you to lie to me, but if there's times, and I try to honor them in this, if I say, hey, what's going on? If they look at me and say, Daddy, I don't want to tell you right now, I do my very best, and Laura can vouch for this. I said, all right, sweetheart, like, unless it's something that's for your safety or whatever, I'm going to give you the space you need to develop that muscle of when do I speak this, when is right. Like, how else am I going to let them learn unless, and maybe they'll do great, maybe they won't, but that's not the point. Like, I need to just let them do the thing and then learn from doing it and then walk and talk them through that and say, okay, what were you thinking? So otherwise, they're just going to become little robots that are like, Dad said, just always speak my mind. And as an adult,
Yeah,
that's not really life. Let's be real. If everyone
absolutely.
listening as an adult was honest, you don't tell everyone everything that's on your mind, regardless of how honest you proclaim to be, because that's
Absolutely. I
that's
think
actually
that's
pretty
really,
dumb. It's not politically
yeah,
savvy.
it's not prudent.
It's not prudent. Oh, there's the word again. It's not emotionally intelligent. Like, there is no care in just blabbing all truth. There's no grace and
Absolutely.
compassion, and there's no measure to anything.
Which sort
You're
of comes back to the essence of prudence, that it's not, it shows us that life isn't always about just what we want, or it's not even about like, okay, honesty, right, or telling the truth. That virtue, like everything, needs a combination of it needs to be tempered with other virtues, right? Nothing exists in isolation.
so
So
true.
it's not just about telling the truth, it's about when, it's about how, it's about at what cost, it's about
Right.
where, right?
Right.
Because I'm not going to go down to like some bar and start telling my truth just because I need to share with someone, or I'm not
Right.
going to, I'm at the grocery store and a couple's fighting and you know, I don't know, intervene because I know the woman's right. These are bad examples I'm giving, but I think you
No,
get the
but
point.
yeah.
Like, it's about how, it's about when, it's about where, you know, and we're using truth and telling the truth as an example, but another, I wrote down here another thing, like, for example, passion, right? So if we talk about things we're passionate about, passion without prudence becomes recklessness or self-destruction or destruction of something in the world or injury, right? So
Right.
I liked this. One of the reasons I chose prudence too is when I was researching, I was looking at that big list of virtues that you have, and I had taken out a handful of them and considering like which one do I really want to talk about, and I don't actually remember what the other ones were because that was months ago, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I was sort of looking into like the history of prudence, you know, and it's back in the 12th century. This was one of the most taught, like sort of when philosophy was starting to be publicly taught throughout, you know, coming out of Greece and into Europe. It was one of the most taught qualities to be developed, and it was in reference to this way of like it's sort of the chariot that allows the other virtues, that gives the other virtues direction. And I love that
That's so
not
cool.
just with honesty, right, but with passion, with it's like what allows the others to unfold sustainably.
Yeah, I love that. It is. It's like the vehicle for so much.
Yeah.
And without it, I don't think you can move around virtues very well. Because again, it's so tied in my mind, just how you are making decisions. And I mean, ultimately, everything is about, we can live in this theory and this theoretical world, and it's not that it's bad to think about and talk about and frame in our mind's eye what we think about something. But then when life hits you in the mouth, like what you think actually comes to the top, because that's how you behave. And so I think you have to bridge the gap between just this philosophical, theoretical, which I love. I have nothing wrong with that. I'm not downplaying it. But if that's the only space you live in and you don't walk it out, that's so dangerous, because you've never really tested it to see what you actually believe. In difficult situations, how restrained can you be with the truth you feel like spilling out? So like if you never walk the talk, I don't know, you're just going to find out really quickly when life starts cropping up and hitting you. And then the way you behave is what you believe. I can't be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, we're not who we, it's that old saying, which I'm going to distort because I don't remember exactly, but we're not who we think we are, right? We're who we are. We're who we are, how we act under stress. That's who we are.
Yes, exactly. And as a parent, I say this to a lot of people, but I will very constantly walk into my little girls, especially maybe after something that wasn't like the best experience for them. Maybe it had nothing to do with me, but I'll just be like, if I was with them, I'll say, hey, what was it like to be around daddy or to experience daddy today when this happened? Or when daddy walks in a room, what is it like to experience me? Like, what do you feel? And while they're young and brutally honest children, if I lean in and listen, I learn a lot about myself. And am I actually practicing the things that in my head I say I want to do? Or even on these podcasts that I say I try to live out. But then if my daughter doesn't see it and identify it, I should probably name the thing to her and say, like, I need to be better at this. How can I be this better for you? And then do that. And it's that simple sometimes. But like those hard questions of looking in the mirror with the kids, God, because they're not going to lie to you. They're just going to be like, no, you were mean. Or no, I didn't feel good. You made me want to cry. Like, oof, that's real. Okay. So I think, yeah, those mirrors of like, what do my actions actually show? That's how I actually believe.
Oh my gosh, I just love that you ask your daughters that question. I've never asked my daughter that question. Like, how is it, I can't remember how you phrased it. How is it?
What's it like to experience me?
To experience me in this situation right now? I mean, I talk to my daughter a lot, clearly, but that is a question I've never asked her.
It's so hard. I don't know. Maybe you don't want to. You hear some gnarly stuff sometimes.
It actually, like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid.
It's a little scary.
Well, also, I think that, teen years we're not really teen years are so interesting because we're certainly not who we were as a child, right? That happy-go-lucky, not that children are always happy-go-lucky, but they come back to that, right? It's like a rubber band. That's their sort of natural dwelling place that they come back to. And every kid, of course, has their personality and their temperament. But in general, kids want to have fun, right? They want to be happy. They want to be loved. And not that adults don't, but that teenage time, it's just so markedly different and transitory. So I can't say that the answers that my daughter would give me at this stage would actually be good for me, and that I should take them with a grain of salt if I were to ask her that question, because teens can be very reactive, and we don't really interpret things with the best lens when we're a teenager. I think that I don't know if you've heard of, do you know about Waldorf and Steiner philosophy, anthroposophy?
Yeah.
My daughter's gone to a Waldorf school since preschool.
Okay.
She started out in Montessori, and then when we came to Brazil, she got into Waldorf kindergarten. This was when we still didn't know if we were going to stay, and a space opened up for her in first grade at the Waldorf school, which was right by our house. It's a very small school. It was like built from an old house, a massive house, but an old house with a couple other classrooms and all made of like adobe. And it was very islandy and great. And I enrolled my daughter, and we really lucked out because, speaking of animals and their, People's Association, she got a golden retriever as her teacher, Larissa, who I will name because she is such a wonderful human being. She got in her class, and then that teacher accompanied her for 8 years. which was such a gift, like a second mother for my daughter. And being a single mom, that was just so great to have another really solid, person around, being far from family and everything. So, but one of the things that in anthroposophy, in the Waldorf sort of studies about children, right, they reach at age 9 is the first sort of fall from heaven. So at age 9, they start to see that, oh, my best friend can really be a jerk, or wow, my mom has like negative emotions sometimes, or there's bad in the world that really exists that I need to be afraid of. There's evil. So that's the first fall out of grace or whatever, and it's called the Rubicon. And then the second Rubicon is at 14 and a half. And that one, like the 9, I definitely felt it, and you can see it. That's when the kids, start experimenting with sort of like different styles, and they want to sometimes be in their room alone.
Sure.
Things like that. And then at 14, it's when they really make a turn away from their parents, and they start to see that one day I'm going to have to, without my parents, without my protector, confront the evil in the world. And it's such a hard transition, I think, for us, because we lived in a gated community with a private trail to the most gorgeous beach in the world. I was at home with my daughter. We didn't, sure, we had a lot of stuff go on with her dad, and we're far from family and blah, 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 but she also had a very charmed life, a very charmed childhood. And so I saw the second transformation, the second Rubicon, or as they say, like the second fall from heaven in anthroposophy, like very markedly. It was really not night and day, but it was a transformation, And so I think since really establishing that now she's almost a late teen, she's, on the second half of teenagerdom. I don't think that everything that goes on in their mind and their perceptions are even that they even believe them sometimes. They're just sort of like clothes that they try on. Like I see her like trying on mentalities and trying on perspectives in a way that, when they're kids, they don't have the capacity to do. And as adults, we know what we believe better. So we don't do that as easily. Sure, we can be flexible with our thoughts and our beliefs. But as an adolescent, I think they really try on different lenses,
Oh yeah.
And so I'm not sure I'd want to ask my daughter that question right now.
It might be scary. I know. I try to I guess age appropriate as much as I can. Be honest with them too, and I'll tell them. I say, hey, because I tell Laura this and people this a lot. I really, really firmly believe, because developmentally, that was my master's was in developmental psych. And there's so many things that just peak in my mind when you're talking about these age frames, but I'll put those to the side because it's not relevant at the time now. But I do love how accurate that is, and also I just love that so many things as a parent and as a dad, especially, it's caught before it's taught. So even when I have these conversations, sometimes when they might not make any sense, I just try to be very repetitive with them, because repetition helps people learn. And I want them to have a certain anchoring bias for certain thoughts and ideas the way that I give it to them. Because it is my job as a dad, is to give them a certain perspective. And I want their faith or belief or whatever they think of, like the unseen and the spiritual world and all of these things, I want that to be true to them. I have my own perspectives, and I need to give them a compass on things, but I also want their beliefs to be their beliefs, because there will come a time, like you say, where life is going to be confronting them, and mom and dad won't be there. And if it was only mom and dad's thoughts and not their heart, that's not going to fly. And I just think it's really healthy to remember that as a parent and as a person, that we all have our own opinions about things and our beliefs about things that we can't see and necessarily tangibly prove. But we also need to respect and appreciate that so does everybody else. And we just need to make space for that to be a respectful place, and teach our children that you can have your own and be respectful of others. But I do want them to know, like, hey, daddy's asking you these questions about what it feels like to be around me, because I think that's cueing in on the emotional intelligence I want them to catch before they can even define it. Of, hey, it's really important that you appreciate and ask others what it's like in this engagement, especially if it's someone that you care about. So the way that you make them feel when you enter a space is really important, So even if you don't know how to answer daddy right now, I just want you to know this is an important question. And one day it might come to light for you. So I'm going to keep doing it because I want you to try this, because your friends will probably like you better if you care about how you make them feel. And so it's just one of those things where, yeah, they don't always give me the best answers. They're like, oh, it's fun, daddy, and it's whatever. But there might come a time where they give me a real answer. And they do sometimes, even the little ones. And I'm like, oof. And so as a parent, I hope I can listen to that and model that it's really important to enter a space listening to feedback. But yeah, I think as a teenager, you're right. You probably aren't always going to get the answers that maybe are so relevant.
That's such a wise.
Maybe not. Who knows?
I think it is. I think it really is
know.
wise. It's also courageous, to have those conversations.
Yeah, you telling me. Good Lord. Yeah, I hear it, man. Aria does not hold any punches, man. But with this Prudence, I think that's a really good cue to maybe go from thinking about the way we think of this into practically. And this is where I'm really excited, because you do have a really amazing story that I want people to hear, whatever you want to share, before we get into how you've practiced this virtue, because I know it means something to you. So before we get into some practical examples people can walk away with, I just want to give you space to write this however you want. Like, what is your story? However you want to share this out.
What a huge question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a bunch of stuff down for this. I thought about it a lot. Like, what do I really want to share? What's important to share?
Yeah.
And I guess I'll share. I'll share a sort of general outline, because I did not follow a conventional life path. I don't know if that means anything to anyone anymore, conventional life path. I think there are a lot of really creative and inventive people out there who don't follow a conventional life path, and that idea is maybe even antiquated. But certainly, I did not. And so I grew up in I didn't even say I grew up in a town. I grew up in a rural place in Pennsylvania, near a small town, on a street with a restaurant from 1776. And our house was almost 100 years old. Our house was so old that the plumbing was put in after fact. And we stayed there. My mom stayed there for, I think, 15 years, because she was there a couple years after I left. We stayed there as a family for 13 years, renting it. My parents, didn't have a lot financially when we were growing up, so we had this old rental house, which was great, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and we had a lot of freedom to ride our bikes everywhere. And I went to public school. Mm-hmm. In a way, my brother and I have talked about this a lot. We had sort of like a very great beginning of our childhood until our parents just fell apart as a couple. And then we just remember it being like, fighting all the time and all this. So that sort of shaped the tone of my life at school. And I'm not going to go really into this, but I think it's an important piece, because it was so formational for me, and it took me many years to navigate after that. I was really bullied, right? It started maybe in 8th or 9th grade, and I don't even think kids know why they're bullying you at first, but definitely at first is because my shoes were old. I didn't have nice clothes. And I remember those were the comments, I remember one time it was in 7th grade. You start middle school, you go to a new school. Some kids are, middle school is different, 6th grade. Ours was 7th, so it was junior high. And I had a few friends there from the elementary. They all feed into the middle school. Mm-hmm. And I sat at the lunch table, and I was wearing a shirt that we got at a thrift store, because way back then, before it ever got cool, my mom used to take us to thrift stores, right, to buy our clothes. And it happened to be like a designer brand, and I didn't know it was a designer brand, and it was like this hot, in trendy shirt or whatever from one of those stores that rich people went to at the mall.
Right.
And anyway, so I sat down at this lunch table. I knew half the girls and not the other half. And one girl was like, "Oh, that's a 10-button, whatever. Where did you get it? How many colors do you have?" And I choked up. I didn't know what to say. And I didn't answer. And she was like, "Oh, she's such a snob." And I remember like, oh my God, that's not what I was thinking at all. I just didn't know what kind of shirt it was.
Right.
And I didn't know her, and I was shy, right? So I didn't know what to say. And then I started noticing, like, I'd get comments going down the hall, like, oh my God, if I wore those jeans to school, I'd kill myself, kind of, things. And so it started like that. And I started shutting down like that, because I was always a very creative, very sensitive to my environment and other people's emotions, but very sensitive myself. So then later in high school, when I was, what saved me was playing soccer, right? I was varsity goalie even from junior high. And my mom was our soccer coach. She pretty much single-handedly made sure that our school district had a varsity girls soccer league, which it didn't before I got to high school, and went around to all of the competing school districts and made sure that they were on board, and initiated an entire girls varsity soccer program in northeastern Pennsylvania.
That's amazing.
So it's amazing.
That's your mom.
So that's my mom. So she was our soccer coach. That's what saved me, having a sport, having a thing, where people knew me and liked me, and using my body and all that. Because I had danced as a little kid, but then soccer sort of took over. So anyway, I remember in high school getting bullied and bullied more, and then it was always, she's a snob. It was always, she thinks she's better than us, which I never thought. And I think it's funny that this was such a thing for me, because for years I went on thinking, like, do I think I'm better than other people? And that's not why I shut down at all. I shut down because I didn't know how to communicate with people. First of all, because it was such a weird, high school for everyone, junior high, it's so hard to begin with socially. It's so incredibly hard. But here I was, like in 9th, 10th, 11th grade, the varsity goalie, blonde at the time, now my hair's darker, tall, pretty, got straight A's, and quiet. So, and like all the boys who were like gorgeous would come see our soccer games, and they'd known me since I was 8 and playing co-ed soccer. And I didn't realize for so long that those girls, they were just bullying me because they were jealous, because the kid they had a crush on was watching me play goalie, and I wasn't even part. And I got called this a lot, like, oh, she's a prude, whatever, because I was also very close, like, to intimacy. I didn't have a boyfriend. I wasn't out there kissing boys and that whole thing. I was an athlete, and I never drank in high school, so the parties, I never got invited, and this whole thing. And that all got watered down to, she thinks she's better than us. And that stuck with me for so long. It's what made me change high schools. I mentioned that when I was 16, before my senior year, I moved with my dad. And he had been living in D.C. He moved over the river to Virginia so that I could go to a public school that wasn't so rough there. And I ended up going to a great school where I met really nice friends that transformed my life and showed me, like, no, you know what? I'm not a jerk. People like me. I can make friends,
Right.
And so, okay. So then anyway, not going to go into details, but that was a very, very, not details like so much of this, but that was very, very formative, which is why I mention it. How my experience as a teenager and late teenager was just as like social isolation and being called names. And I mean, they even bomb threaded my house. My mom, after I moved out, got a message on our answering machine, remember answering machines?
I do.
About how, like, calling me really bad names and saying that I had, involved myself with like every guy at the high school. My mom asked me about it, like, Sarah, could this possibly? And I was like, how could you even think that about me, So anyway, into the future a little. We didn't really have money for me to go to college. I got a half scholarship to James Madison University, got there the first day and realized I'm not going to be able to pay this bill. My parents can't pay this bill. So I was living in my car, which my mom had given me, I think that lasted about 2 or 3 months, where I was sleeping alone in my car. My dad had moved in with his new girlfriend, who later became his wife, and her daughter, who was like 5 or 6 at the time, an hour away from his house where I'd been living my senior year. And he thought, oh, she's going to go to college, not thinking about really how I would pay for it. So suddenly I was living in this car, and a friend of mine that invited me out, and her friend was there, and was like, what, you're living in your car? No. You're gonna live with me and my parents. Come here, it's fine. So I actually ended up living with this girl for like 6 months. Her parents, and her baby brother. And during that time, met my first, not my first boyfriend. I had a boyfriend my senior year. My second boyfriend, my first real boyfriend, right? That was an adult relationship.
Right.
And we took a trip to New Orleans, and just out of the blue, drove down to New Orleans, and we ended up staying. We stayed 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So this is the part that I was wanting to get to, right? Having come from this very sort of traumatic, not physically traumatic, but very traumatic emotionally experience, and not really knowing how to connect with people, or even if I was worthy of connecting with people, because I was so used to people just assuming that I was a jerk or an a-hole, or like had a superiority complex. And some of those are, all of those are partially true, because I think all of us partially have those qualities. They're qualities, right? But they weren't my defining characteristics by any means.
Right.
Suddenly I was in this beautiful, historic, magical, artistic city that swept me away in the best way possible into becoming an artist. And I was with one of the greatest people I've known in this life, who was my boyfriend at the time. His name's Nick, and he was a photographer, print photographer. And even to this day, he prints photos. He does actual film, and has sold work to like National Geographic, and has made these beautiful books. So we were living together in New Orleans. And that's where I was really exposed to live music and live performance, and it started shaping, who I would become. I saw tribal North African belly dance for the first time, for example, and saw all the, Cirque du Soleil and all of these beautiful things. And I started going down this road of working in restaurants and pursuing art. And it's, that part is pretty conventional, because I think most artists have a part-time restaurant gig at some point in their life.
Yeah, probably so.
Right? So that went on, and we traveled a lot. We would take his van, for example, and go to Yellowstone for the summer and try to photograph wolves, or just hit the road as two, starving artists, and come back to New Orleans and get another restaurant or bar gig, and keep making art. We started our first band, etc. And eventually I auditioned for a dance group, a dance performance group there, and got invited in, and started training 5 days a week for that. And we would do conventions, like big conventions at the Pepsi Center, Convention Center, or any various gigs in New Orleans. So that was sort of the beginning of my adult life. And I never thought at that time that, like, oh, I'm on this path to be this, or I'm this path. I was just living. Yeah. And it's something that now I would love to have that ability. Although at the time I knew that I thought I was being very reckless with my life, but I also didn't have another choice. Like most of the people I knew, not most of the people I knew, but most of the people from my childhood and in my family were going to college. They were on a career path, something that brought stability, right? And I was not. I was doing art. I was learning, cultural dances, which now looking back, I was like, that was amazing. I did that, and that led to amazing, beautiful things.
Right.
But at the time, I really felt like I was effing off, when I would talk to family or when I would talk to more stable friends from my past. So I started involving myself more and more with, the artistic community. And when it got really nice for me, really more serious, was when I moved back up to the Washington, Baltimore area where my brother was living. And I started studying dance a lot more seriously, like with international artists who would come up to the DC area to teach and whatnot. And then I was invited to, I thought I was going to audition to dance in this theater, which was called Tsunami Theater, which is a woman, Naoko Moshibo, who was had a National Endowment from the Arts grant and did performances at the Kennedy Center and the National Monument Garden, National Sculpture Garden. I thought I was going to audition to dance, and while the auditions were going on, the director, Naoko, was saying, we need to find a singer for the theater, so if anyone knows anyone, let us know. And I didn't plan on saying anything, and my friend who was there auditioning with me was like, Sara, she's your girl, and so on the spot, in front of 50 people who were auditioning to be in this theater group, I was standing up at the time because we were doing across the floor auditions. She would say she would show us something and we'd have to do it across the floor, and she watches us do it. And so I was standing because that's where my position was. And my friend Meredith at the time, she was sitting down and she's pointing at me. The whole room's looking. And Naoko's like, well, sing something for us. So I just started singing. Yeah. And that's not the only thing Meredith said. She's like, she has one of those voices where you stop everything. And she's like, okay, well, sing something for us. Talk about pressure. So I got the part, and suddenly I was singing.
What did you sing? Do you remember?
I do. I don't remember the name of the band offhand. It was this song. It's a lullaby. Hold on, I'm trying to remember the name of the band. It's a very strange, psychedelic rock band that my friend, who was the drummer in our band in New Orleans, who was the reason I came to Brazil originally, used to play. It goes like, na, 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 na. Anyway, I'm not going to go into a full singing thing here.
I sort of wish you would, but I won't make you. Yeah.
It's no words. It's just melodic.
Yeah.
And it has just some syllables and a melody,
Yeah.
Oh, what is the name of that band? Anyway, that's going to bother me, but whatever.
Sorry.
So I sang a few phrases from it, And suddenly, after that, I was working with the most creative and amazing musicians and dancers and theater artists that I had ever met. And a few months later, I was performing at the Kennedy Center. And
that's amazing.
I'll tell you what, and then here's the strange part. No one that I knew came. No one that I told my family, no one lived around there, so they couldn't, they couldn't technically come. But it was also something that felt like, wow, I'm doing this, and back then we weren't recording anything. There was no Instagram, there were videos of the stage, but I was in the musicians pit. I was actually supposed to get up on the stage and sing, and I told her right before, when I saw those 2,000 people in that theater, it was I was supposed to get up on stage and sing alone, and I said, I need to be in that pit with the orchestra. I cannot get up there.
Do you have any recordings from that time?
No.
Anything that you'll? Oh man.
We have nothing. I have. Well, here's the thing. Most of back then, people now don't realize what a mission it was to get a recording, a live recording. I'm sure Naoko.
That's why I was asking, because it wasn't
huge.
As common. Yeah.
It wasn't as common. No, it was so hard, and a lot of the productions that I did were for. So there were two things. This one, I want to say, Naoko probably has a stage recording of that, but I was not on the stage, so my voice probably appears in that.
Yeah.
But me as a person, no, because I was singing from the orchestra pit. But there were two three really sort of main types of events that I danced or performed at. One was really culturally creative events at art, what's the word I'm looking for? Galleries or art centers that people would put on and have mixed performance, right? And back then, people really weren't documenting footage of it. Some people would take stills, and if if you were on there, you were on there. But usually we had to pay a camera crew to come out. The footage that is out there is, I was invited to dance, to fire dance actually in an MTV series. So this series, and it sort of took some heat. MTV actually took it off, but I think the Discovery Channel still aired it. It was called America's Most Haunted Places. And cool. I was living in New Orleans, and I didn't even know that actually our series, the one that we recorded, made it on the series. It was my mother-in-law, my dad's wife, who called me. And this must have been 1999, I would guess. 1999 or 2000. And she called me and she's like, Sara, were you just on the Discovery Channel? And I was like, I don't know. Was I? And she's like, yeah, this is the show, America's Most Haunted Places. Is that you? I was like, oh, that was me. But it took heat because in New Orleans, they filmed a voodoo church. And voodoo has, it's a religion based on goodness. And it gets a bad rap that, everyone thinks about voodoo dolls, and like voodoo is all about spells and whatnot. Yeah. At the heart of voodoo, like they're praying to a god that they believe in for goodness. And the fact that, they put it on this series called America's Most Haunted Places was really sort of defaming to the religion and the tradition. Yeah. So, but they took us there was this whole MTV camera crew, and we went on pontoon boats into the mangrove trees in the bayou in New Orleans, and filmed an entire ritual with these voodoo priestesses. And the ritual was all, I don't remember the name of the goddess it was for, but it was for the god of humanitarian love, like agape. Instead of like Eros, which is the god of romantic love, right? It was the god for like universal love. And I was fire dancing, and there were all these, it was a beautiful ritual, and they wanted, MTV wanted there to be fire dancers involved. So yeah, that made it onto film.
Side note, since you said MTV, like I miss old school MTV.
Right?
I'm sorry. Like, I just love growing up and watching, like, maybe it's like a grunge song or something, and you just see the music video. Like, I know it's nostalgia. Whatever. I miss that so much. It's the best for me.
It's not the same, too. Like, if you put on YouTube and watch the videos, I do that a lot. Like, a Friday night, I'll do that. But it's not the same. You don't have the host, and you don't have the themed show and the whole...
You don't. And you're like... It's almost the anticipation that you aren't guaranteed. Like, I hope I hear the song that I really like right now, but I can't just go straight to the music video. I have to wait if it's in the queue, and then you see the. Man, I talked about that about Laura earlier because she was listening to. I think she was listening to like an old Pink song or something. I don't know. It was something that came on, and she had on like an old alternative playlist or something. She was like, oh my God. We was just coming home from the store today, and it was just me and her. Then we were going to go get the girls from school. She goes, I remember this music video, and I remember what it looks like. I was like, me too. So we're just like, that's very associated to like teenage years, and those things resonate and stick like thumbprints in your DNA, but I miss it so much. It's just not the same. I don't know.
It's not the same. And do you remember calling in on the live radio show? Or was that before? Yeah, right?
No, you could, for sure.
I can't remember what our age difference is. I think it's like 6 years, maybe.
Probably.
If I'm not wrong.
I won't ask you to age yourself, but I'm an 84 baby, so I'm about to be 42. Yeah. So.
Okay.
They're in that spread somewhere.
In that spread somewhere.
We're in the spread. But yes, you could call into your you could call in, and you had to turn your radio down so you can. Yeah.
And then if you got on the air, like we lived in a small town, me and my brother both got on live.
Oh yeah.
We had our voice on the show. It's like what a.
You were like so cool. You're like, this is big time. I'm on the radio.
Jam, like, all your friends were listening, and like they were hearing you make your request.
Sarah asked for that, Sarah. Calling you up from their long, like stretchy house phone that's connected in the kitchen, and mom's picking it up and kicking you off and whatever. You can't dial on AOL because mom picked up the house phone and kicked you off the internet. All of the things. Yes. Anyway. But continue with your story. Sorry. So you're Kennedy Center, you were
So
performing. Okay, New
yeah,
Orleans. Got it.
so there was a very good friend of mine back in the day then who danced a lot with me, and she, after talking to her, I got a tip that I could go for in Baltimore. I was living up in Baltimore. I could go for a free student shiatsu session at this school, as we were in the dance school. We were in like the locker room where you change and stuff, and I was like, oh, she's like, you can get a free session in shiatsu. It's like Asian body work up at this school. And so I was like, oh, that's great. I'm gonna go check it out, because I didn't have money for body work or anything like
Right.
that. And I mean, I'm talking about, I was still like maybe 24 or 23 at the time, right? All of this happened like very, very soon after high school, that like my deep involvement in the performing arts. And then, so I went to this school, and I was actually supposed to, I had a ticket purchased already to visit Brazil, because our bandmate in New Orleans, he had been living in New Orleans. He moved back to Brazil. His parents were Brazilian, but his mom took him to live in the States, and his dad had just passed away. So he was back in Rio, and he was like, you've got to come down here. You got to visit. You're going to love it, blah, blah, blah. And his girlfriend was living down there, American at the time, and so I bought a ticket and went to have the shiatsu treatment. And I'm laying there among, who knows, maybe 10 or 20 futons. Have you ever had a shiatsu session, like a traditional
No,
one?
I haven't.
So it's fully clothed. You wear like, yoga clothes or flexible clothes, and you lay on a futon on the floor, and the practitioner does all this great stuff.
Yeah.
Stretches you out and does all these points, and it's so relaxing. And the entire room was like the dim lighting and the beautiful, Asian flute music. And the mentor came over as I was being worked on and asked, checked in with the student and asked me how I was doing. And I was under a spell. I said, I'm great. I just want to stay here. I said, I need to learn this. And he said, there's a course starting next month. And I said, oh, I don't have any money to pay for that. He's like, our program qualifies for federal student aid. You can qualify. And I was like, okay, really? And I actually got the information from him after the session,
Yeah.
and I enrolled in the school
That's
and
so cool.
ended up doing that program, which again changed my life and the trajectory. I never imagined that I'd be doing, body work.
Yeah.
Didn't go to Brazil at that time. Ended up taking this course, which was about a year and a half. And working full time while doing it. I was working as a receptionist at an architecture firm while I did that course, which was nights and weekends. And that was my first sort of deep dive, I'd say it was really my first deep dive into spirituality and because we didn't have a religious upbringing, right? Both of my parents had that, and both decided that it was way too strict and they didn't want that for their children. Like my dad, I don't know if you know this, but my dad was raised Seventh-day Adventist and
I didn't know that.
went to hit a boarding school, a very, very small, clearly, Seventh-day Adventist boarding school in Pennsylvania. And he was the only kid who really wouldn't go home for the summers. I think he went to that school when he was 12. Don't quote me on that because I don't remember exactly, but it was very early. And he stayed at that academy his entire, middle school and high school years.
Wow.
And even though it was really, he sees now how amazing it was for him. He learned to build houses, like he learned how to plant food. He got a great academic education, was like voted most likely to succeed and all this stuff. It was also, he saw it as religiously very limiting, and they wanted us to have our own belief and our own, and it's something they really agreed on. So we never had, my mom again had a library full of like the Tao Te Ching and like spiritual books, but nothing was ever impressed upon us. Or let's say nothing was ever imposed upon us. And not that that's a bad thing. It's just what they chose for us, right?
Right.
So that was sort of that immersion, because shiatsu and Chinese body work is so immersed in philosophy and spirituality in a way that's clearly like very materially based, very body based. And that was my first really immersion into merging dance and music and art into a philosophy that had a spirituality behind it, into, it wasn't just my body making art anymore. Now it was like my body that has 5 sacred emotions, and that has, all of this amazing capacity, and each element in Chinese philosophy has a spirit to it. For example, the lungs, each element correlates to an organ system, and that also has a spirit. So the lungs, for example, is the Po, and that's the spirit that dies with the breath. So it's ephemeral, whereas the heart, the Shen, is our eternal spirit, the one that merges with God after we pass on from physical form. So there's like the small Shen, which is us expressed as a soul on earth in a body, and then there's the big Shen, which is God, right? So anyway, this was my first immersion into this, and I was captivated by it. I loved it. And it really gave me a way to say, like, okay, I can have a job that's not restaurant work now. I can open a practice.
I can step out of that now.
I have a qualification that isn't
Right.
restaurant work. I mean, dancing paid, and I made way more money dancing than I did in restaurants, but it was never enough. It was never like a great living. So, and of course dancing as a career has a time limit, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it forever, especially Indian classical dance, which I hadn't started at this point yet. So I ended up doing that, and then after I graduated, I started working on people, and I would drag my futon either to their house, or I worked in a couple different spas in the Baltimore, D.C. area. And I was still working for my brother, who had Cafe Bagel at the time, which was...
I remember that. I mean, I never went, but I remember when he had it. I remember that time frame, if you will. Yeah.
That was great. That was
So
a
cool.
great time. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I would
What
work
a sharp
for him.
dude, man. Oh, I
He's
love Jason.
great.
He is great.
He was a pioneer too, man. He did so many amazing things too.
He really is.
And just to segue, I'll say this, even though we don't need to go off on a tangent. What a great dad too. I mean,
I know. He is.
so yeah, so he is. Just had to give that shout out. So
Well
I was
earned.
doing that, and then my friend again in Brazil was like, "You got to come down here." So finally, I got to go, and I got to go because of my brother, because for my 30th birthday, he gifted me a trip to Brazil. And I had been working at the cafe, and he's like, "Just take off, just go. Where do you want to go? You want to go to Jamaica or something?" I was like, "No, I want to go to Brazil." So I did. I went down there for, I don't remember, a couple weeks, and visited my friend in Rio, and we went to a couple festivals and whatnot, and I fell in love with Brazil. I spoke Spanish fluently at the time. I didn't understand a word anyone was saying to me in Brazil. I thought, oh, it's going to translate a little. No, it did not.
Nope.
And I got back to the States, and I was like, I think I really want to spend some time there. So I worked out this internship doing permaculture, which is like, do you know about that? Maybe your listeners do or don't. It's like, wasn't a big part of my life, but it's sustainable agriculture, sustainable architecture, and sort of sustainability philosophy, right?
Yeah.
So I went and did that, and was traveling after the internship, which was a few months, and met who at the time I thought was going to be the love of my life, my daughter's dad. And that's sort of how our relation with Brazil, my relationship with Brazil took off. He and I took off for a year and traveled South America with our houses on our back, backpacking. I would fly back to Miami. Every once in a while, he would stay, and I'd work for my friend's art gallery in Miami, which I still work for to this day. To make money, because dollars go a really long way in like Bolivia and Ecuador, and at that time even further. And then we eventually went to India, and that's where I started studying Indian classical dance and became really, really serious about it. I studied like for about 7 years under
Wow.
a guru from there, Sanchita Bhattacharya, and became a disciple, got, her blessing to teach beginners, which is really hard to do. It's a very disciplined art form. And that's where I really started understanding like the depth of a spirituality that humankind has been expressing through art for millennium. It's that dance is the oldest documented dance form on the planet, and it has like texts written about the philosophy behind it.
What if I can inject? What took you to India? Because like you have an amazing just like dots like buckshot on a map, literally, of where you've been with places. But what you're just like, oh, and then we went to India. Like, hold on. Like, let's rewind. Like, what? That's so cool. But what was that trajectory? Was that just like a spin the globe and put your finger and say, "Yep, we'll go," or was it? What drove you there?
We were both interested in yoga, and I do want to say though he was more of the driving force of wanting to go to India.
Okay.
He and his friend who lived with us, Tatu, they both wanted to go. Tatu ended up not going, just me and Pedro went. But Tatu had been studying Ayurveda, which is an old ancient Indian healing art, right? And healing philosophy. And so they were really into yoga. And I had practiced yoga at that point. Later, I went on to get my yoga certification and did a lot of yoga in India. I had practiced yoga, but I wasn't so into it. But as soon as they started saying I'm going to go to India, I was like, oh, I am studying dance in India. So that's sort of how that came about. Cool. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Fast forward, we had our daughter, became a single mom.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to skim through this part of the story because we've talked about so much. And now here I am in Brazil. I thought that I would stay 1 year. It's coming up. It's 13 solid years now.
Wow.
Plus the other years I was here before she was born. So, I'm sort of Brazilian at this point as well.
So the Portuguese isn't as difficult to speak as the initial, it'll be like Spanish.
Oh, wow. It was an uphill battle with Portuguese, but I have, I've crossed that finish line. So
that's impressive too, though. I mean, even regardless of how many years you've lived there, I think I need to tip the hat to going into a new culture and really plugging in and learning the language. I think it's a really big sign of respect, especially if you want to live there. In some places, it might be a little bit more required than others because maybe it's not just they will easily default to English. Some cultures it is easier, and it's almost like if you don't speak their language well, like here in Norway, where we're at, if you're struggling with speaking Norwegian to them, they'll flip to English for you, and it makes it challenging sometimes to learn it because they're just quick to jump over. But
that happens.
Yeah, it does in some places, but I think regardless of that, it doesn't matter. Like to actually just plug into a culture, learn a new language, show the humility and vulnerability to do that, and the courage to work through it. Because I think it takes all of those things to do it well. Because you do feel like a newbie trying to learn something new, and Laura speaks it really well now. But it's just like it's very humbling to be like, wow, I am pretty lousy at this, and I think. Reading it, to me anyway, with a new language, reading it or hearing it is less difficult than trying to speak it because I'm so afraid of just speaking it wrong. And I think that's what's beautiful about kids. They don't care. They just stumble through it until they get it. But adults, I just really get tripped up on, saying it properly, so I don't sometimes. But anyway, all of that aside, that's just like, those little parts of your story are really important, though, because that shows, I think, from what I hear, having to live that space with my family, moving all over, for those that haven't done that puts you in a very vulnerable spot to be an outsider. And it's very important. Like I don't get political with things on this, but I want people to appreciate the tension in the world right now. And when there are people that are outside of a country that are seeking a better life for them or their family, or maybe not better, they're just trying to be creative and follow their passion or follow their heart or try to see something new in this beautiful planet that we get to live on and see a different culture and climate and all of the above. Man, show some grace and space for those people, because being the
Yeah.
outsider is so damn hard.
It's so
And,
hard.
and it's almost impossible when you don't have any welcoming arms inside of that culture to let you inside. It's
I
very
agree.
hard to crack into it. So like, just appreciate that. If you haven't done this before and you don't know what I'm talking about, please be gracious to those who might look different than you from a different, like I tell people all the time, if someone is speaking with an accent, you can almost bet money they're already smarter than you, because it already proves that they're not speaking in their original native language. Like there are so
Yeah.
many things to learn from the strength of those people that are different than you. I'll leave
That
it there,
is
but man,
so
that's such an
important.
important part to me that I need to just voice, because you struck a chord
Yeah.
with what you said about language and learning it. I
I
see
know
it from
you
my
know
family.
it.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. You know this very firsthand, and I'm glad that you pointed it out. And it is important for people to understand very much for that reason. You know, I remember growing up, and it was a different time when I was growing up. We didn't have as much globalization, clearly.
Sure.
We didn't have the internet. Like, I mean, my generation was the last one to grow up without internet in our homes. Like you mentioned, you guys had AOL. I think I'm a
It
little
was
bit more
later,
than
yeah.
6
Yeah, it wasn't young,
older
but it
than
was
you.
later on. Yeah.
Yeah, internet came when I was already college age into homes, right? So we never had that in our house, not even the beginning stages.
Right.
And I remember hearing, like, and I know that from people who have never left their home country and their mother tongue, we can often, and I'm just going to say we to not, point the finger at anyone.
Sure.
We can often hear an accent or hear someone struggling with finding the right words or hear a limited vocabulary that happens when you're speaking a second language, especially when you're beginning, and think automatically that person's dumb. That person is not that intelligent. It is so incredibly hard to express yourself in a foreign language.
So
And
hard.
you're right. Just the fact that they are there trying and succeeding to some extent already shows that they're probably at least as intelligent as you, if not more, right?
Yes.
And, extend them a hand because it's hard. I just brought that, and I want to stick this in there for our girls who might
Please do.
listen later.
Please do.
I love this quote that the only thing you should ever do if you're looking down on someone is extend them a hand.
I love that. I love that.
And it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard to be that person, but it is the
Yes.
person that we want to be, right? That our hearts know is possible to be.
It is, and I think you said it earlier, and you said it very well, like whether we have a little bit of, being an a-hole or being proud about stuff, every human being struggles with pride or arrogance. It's natural. It's how we are, I think, just as our human fleshly form. But I think trying to be a little bit deeper than just the facade level as a person and tapping into the heart. And I think the way that I try to define a heart for people, because I've had people ask me, what do you think of this? I view the heart as, like, the way I say it, it's the intersection of your intellect, like what you know in your head, your emotion, and then your will to act on something. So like the intersection of my intellect, my emotion, and my will, that's like the heart I mean, not just like your emotional heart. So like the way I think, the way I feel, and the way I behave, all of those are informed by like my collective heart. That's the way I try to frame it for my girls. So like at the heart of me, when all of these things cross paths and then create something outwardly that people can see, that's where it just needs to be. Try to quiet that pride down, and that only comes through practice, and that comes through being open to other people chipping away at that for you and being willing to appreciate what other people tell you it's like when you're around, like, ooh, I think I'm being great, but they don't think so much. And that's hard because self-love is a good thing. I can't love you if I don't love myself, but like an overdose of self-love to the point of arrogance or, like you said, looking down on people, it's so difficult. It's a daily struggle, and false cloaks of humility or in the BS that comes with that. Everyone has them. We all have them. You and I have them because we're
Absolutely.
people. But I love
Oh my
that. Yeah, girls. Like, listen to
Drive,
Sarah.
and every day I'm like, what a jerk I am.
Yeah.
I don't take it out on drivers,
No.
but I think in my head all the time, oh, what an idiot. Why'd they do that? And I'm like, wait, I am just here in my car. I don't even like to get behind the wheel sometimes because of who I become. And it reminds me, like, oh my gosh, I
Oh
am not
man,
perfect. I
I know.
I I have to temper this ego, you know.
That's so true. But I love that. Thank you so much for sharing such a rich story because I mean, what a beautiful snapshot to understand. That's one of my favorite questions. It's you'll appreciate this. I learned that from my dad. He was so good because dad worked construction like his whole life. But man, the dudes on the job loved him, and he would have dudes over, like some rough dudes too. Sometimes they'd come over to our house, and mom would cook them a meal, and they'd sit around the table with us, and he would just sit there. And he knew a lot of their story, but I would hear him ask people like, "Ah, tell my boy, what's your story? Talk to the kids. Tell them your story." And so like Robbie, or I remember some of these guys, but he loved to just give a space for people to just share their story. And they'd be like, "What do you mean, Joe?" He's like, whatever you want it to mean. Just share your story. What you thinking about? What do you want to tell my kids? But to give people like a blank canvas to paint on who right now they want to communicate that they are and where they come from. And that can change based on the venue or the audience. Sure, I'm sure
Yeah.
it will. But I think it's a really simple, beautiful, untethered question to anything. It just gives people a space to share. And I really love that you took that where you took it because it gives a really rich backdrop for the listeners and for me, just to hear what informs so much of what we're about to step into now, which is really the meat and potatoes of this and the heart of it. Like really unpacking Prudence. But I never used to do it this long, like a build up. Like I told you before, like some of these used to be short form and it'd be like, hey, I want to stick 20 to 30 minutes tops for an episode. And oh my God, I'm so glad I just took the tether off of that because, yeah, I mean, I might be sitting almost 2 hours in with you now and we're just getting past your story. But without that backdrop of who Saragine is, I think it's almost impossible to really understand the heart of what we're about to unpack next, which is really the most practical stuff. So you've got to get both and in my mind. So I'm so honored that you shared that the way you did. That was beautiful. Thank you for that. But
It was
for
nice.
Prudence, because you did pick this one out of a list.
Yeah.
Why is it the virtue, and we might have already started hinting on this, but why is it the virtue that you really want to marry your voice and your story to, especially in this season of life that you're in right now?
Yeah, I think it's funny because people who've known me for a long time, or like my parents, or friends from a long time ago, would probably not associate this virtue with me, right? Because I can't say I was reckless. Like, I've never delved into drinking and drugs and this stuff. Luckily, I had the wisdom, the prudence to not do that. But
Yep.
I mean, aside from the glasses of wine and things like this on it
Sure.
at the dinner table and those kind of like levels, but I think that it's one that I'm going to answer on the fly. I have things written down about this, but I want to say something else actually, is that when I think about like any sort of legacy that I would like to leave for my daughter, of like how to become a really, have your life as a woman mean something to you and the people around you, and protect what is most valuable for you. You need prudence. You need to be able to have cultivated, first of all, a value system and a way to protect it, right? And I think that that's why I wanted to marry this. That's why I wanted to talk about this on recording.
Yeah.
If my daughter hears this, right, she'll think that, yeah, of course, self-awareness is, the basis probably of prudence, right? There are many other virtues that are very strong, but this is just one that, again, doesn't get talked about as much because it's not as fun looking or interesting looking, right? It sort of hints at something that's, no one likes to be called a prude, but it hits in something that's restrictive.
Yeah.
But I think that I wanted to marry my voice to this and talk about it for those reasons, and to show that restraint and the wisdom to restrain and the wisdom to reel yourself in and to understand your effect, the effect of your choices, and that one choice that you make can not only change your entire trajectory, but someone else's. That's something I want to talk about and cultivate more and more in myself, and also the people around me.
Yeah.
It's something that I could have had, looking back, what do they say? Hindsight is 20/20, right? I don't think I had as much of that as I could have when I was in my early adulthood. I burned some bridges. I left jobs that probably would have taken me somewhere. I sit with this a lot. I moved countries. I've developed a life far away from so many people I love. Would I have done that had I had, more foresight and more prudence back in the day? Maybe I still would have, but maybe not. Maybe I would have made other choices. And not that I'm not expressing regret here. I'm just expressing that this wasn't always really a part of my chemistry as strongly as it is now. Although over the years I've seen like this tendency in me. I think I have been always had this, sort of, like I said, in high school, I wasn't doing what most kids were doing. I was always in the clean crew.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think I've spoken enough about that answer, but that's why, I thought it's a really important one for me.
That's good. And I think it does relate to, you mentioned earlier, Prudence has a lot of connections to patience. And I mean, I said that up front, but when I think of you, I think of a very loving person, and two very action-based words that I try to use with our girls. I say it to them every morning when they go out the door, and especially my little one, she's hilarious, and she's a firecracker, Karina, when she goes to Barnahaga, which is like their kindergarten or preschool. And I say, hey, today I want you to be patient and be kind and have fun. And the have fun thing is just a tack on, because I just want them to enjoy themselves. But the patient and kindness is just like, I think those two together are the basis of love. Because when you love someone, you're patient with it, or you're patient with the process. You're kind through things, even when it's difficult. Those are very deliberate choices. And I think Prudence does exemplify and build up patience and kindness, because it is difficult. And I'll say this, I'm so glad it's your voice. And I don't know personally, this is very biased, I don't know if I would be quick to allow a man to speak on this virtue. Not that it's not important for men, but the most prudent people I know are very patient, thoughtful women. And I'm not saying that there's nothing scientific behind that. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. In my heart, that's just my observation, is that the most prudent people I know, of course my mom and my sisters, but like outside of my immediate circle, if I think of Prudence, not just because it sounds maybe like more of a feminine style word or name, but it actually resonates to me to like people I think of that are strong women. And I think, man, they are very prudent or discerning. And I think there is a difference at times that I think strong men need to appreciate the partnership with women that bring virtues that are not so quick off the draw for them. But if they partner and bring in voices and expertise from someone like you, and give a space for someone like you to speak into this instead of them trying to grab at straws, it's more natural and it's more rich, because it's not as easy of a virtue from what I have seen. And people will probably tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. Just my opinion. It's easier for a strong woman because there's something about that posture, especially of a mother, and just the patience, even the patience that you've gone through to bear a child, and the pain physically that you endure. But then on the other side of that, the kindness and the love and the just withstanding a lot of physical, emotional stressors, that I think develops and nurtures prudence in one's life. And I just think, I'm really convinced that it's really strong in a lot of strong women I know. So I'm so glad that this is you saying it, because I just can't, there's men that show it, but there's not men that would fit it as neatly as you do, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't know if that lands with people, but it needed to be said. So there we go. And it's also my podcast, so I can say whatever we want. So there we go.
You can.
I sure can. But so where have you seen this? Maybe Prudence was something that was clearly protected, where you're trying to protect something sacred in your life, if it was a relationship or maybe passion or a calling, or maybe even just a season of life that really required that restraint rather than maybe some actions that you were feeling like?
I'm going to take it back to something that I've mentioned, I've touched on a couple times and elaborate on that. So, as I told in my story, I've spent a lot of my early adulthood and, life in general around artists, travelers, bohemian communities, right? Like very alternative communities in general. And I don't want to make any stereotypes. At the same time, those communities tend to involve drugs a lot of the time. Not often, not all the time. Like
Sure.
there are very academic artists, right? But you inevitably will get into situations where that's around. That was something I never wanted to participate in, and I was very clear as a child, because I had seen some situations, growing up with a dad who was in construction, and you never know who's on the crew.
Right.
And I had seen some situations and just knowing as a kid that destroys lives. So I think having prudence throughout, like there were several situations where, and I'm being very intentional in choosing this because I know our daughters are going to hopefully listen to this. And I think it's so important because there's a side of everyone that wants to experiment with things. And unfortunately, and I've had people in my personal life die from, getting involved with these things. There's that edge of, you want to experiment, but some things are just very, very dangerous and don't even deserve, you cannot cross a line. And I was in so many situations where having that prudence and that self-awareness that, no, this is a no for me, really saved me from not only experimenting with a dangerous substance that was around me and that people, even close to me. Like we had a band member in New Orleans before I was really, really involved with dance. And in the dance world, it's less because people have to take care of their bodies more. In the music world, it's rampant.
Right.
And we had a band member overdose while he was in our band and die. I think I was 21 or 2, and he was like my age. And that was just, I was already the straight edge person. And again, a prude. Most situations you're in, you're like, oh, don't you want some of this? Don't you want some of that? It's like, no, I really don't. You don't know how much I don't want that, but you sound to those people like a prude. Like you're not, you're lame, you're boring, whatever. And that protected me in so many situations I can't even tell you. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit more because it wasn't just with substances. I kind of want to give this example as well because I think this is something that I see a lot. I live in Brazil, right? As we've said, it's a very open culture in many ways, right? With drinking, with not as much, I think substances in general are more of a problem in the United States than they are here, excluding alcohol, which is just everywhere here.
Right.
But relationships are very open. And the age of consent here is 14, which is the case in a lot of countries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm constantly consoling friends, adult women, who, open themselves up to intimate relationships with men who they, just out of the need to connect with someone, who they know are not going to be a partner, truthful. They don't care for them. And I have been my entire life unwilling to do that because of my own prudence and my own protection of my body as a temple, and not just my body, but my heart. Because as a woman, we literally take in who we involve ourselves with, right?
Right.
And I think that a lot of the women that I've known don't take that as seriously as they could to save themselves trauma and recuperation later. Like, my mantra has always been for myself when I'm somewhere, like, if I do this, how am I going to feel tomorrow? Am I going to feel regret about this? And I always make sure that I'm in a mind state that I know truly if I'm going to be, I can count the times on one hand that I've gotten like, so I've drunk or whatever at a party that I lost that discernment.
Right.
Because I just don't let myself go there. And yeah, is there a part of me that is like, that comes from maybe trauma, and that comes from knowing what it's like to be, in a situation that you don't? Yes. At the same time, like, you can develop that level of awareness and caution without having to have gone through, and really save yourself some heartache and some repair that you don't need to have done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that. Girls, that's just from a heart of love and experience. And I love that. I think it's powerful to come from a strong woman who has been there and been in environments that offered a lot of opportunities to make bad choices, or choices that even if other people say, oh, that's not bad. Well, if it's not aligned to what you want to choose to do for good, then I think it's bad. So there are even things that might not be as drastic as drugs or heavy drinking to where you're losing your physical and mental capabilities, or whether it's being more open with relationships or promiscuous or whatever. There might just be decisions where everyone else is telling you should do this, but if it's not what you've chosen for what you feel passionate and purpose for, I equally think that's not a prudent choice, and it's not right for you. Like, there are those very specific things, I think, as people, and I love that you share that from a heart of a loving, well, sure, as my cousin, but also a loving mother to your daughter, and lovingly as a mother to my girls, which it's so important to hear this, to hear a voice outside of just parents at times, where other people go like, hey, no, your parents aren't crazy. Like, I actually can vouch for that too. Like, you can hear it from the cool.
Say the same thing.
You can hear it from the cool aunt who's traveled the world, or this or that, right? Like, it's okay to hear those other voices, and it's so important. So I love that you tailored that in just for them, and also for Lumi. But thank you so much for that. That's very powerful, and it's spot on. And I just want to honor you that, like, that takes a lot of discipline too. Like, prudence takes discipline to continue to be prudent, because you're going to start feeling the pressure based on the people you're with. And it doesn't mean you have to not associate with certain people, but you got to know you're strong enough to associate if they're making choices you don't want, without throwing shade and judgment. And those are some difficult waters to navigate at times in relationships, without cutting people off completely and isolating, or without just giving in. That's a hard thing. And prudence, I think you nailed it. It's the chariot that facilitates that wise choice. But it's so hard.
Right.
It's so hard. Oh my God. But as a mother, since you're speaking to the kiddos, where have you seen as a mother maybe prudence rightly applied and maybe misapplied? And what did each of those sides of the coin teach you?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the misapplied one first, and
Okay.
from my own maybe misled, understanding of what it means to protect as a mother. So I used to have a lot of fear about something tragic happening to my daughter when she was little, like a lot of fear. And to the point where I had to seek therapy about it, and understand that, well, honestly, therapy didn't really help me. What helped me was believing in a higher power. And I really believe in guardian angels. I remember clearly one night I was in a meditation retreat, and we were all sitting there in total silence in this beautiful geodesic dome by the ocean near where I live. And it was the first time, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. It was the first time that I turned my cell phone off since my daughter it was the first time I turned my cell phone off and left my daughter with her father. And so my family probably understands what that means, because I had turned my cell phone off tons of time when my daughter was with my family. Tons of time. I my daughter was with my mom or my brother or my dad or my stepmom or even a babysitter, and my phone was off if I was working, or if I was, if I was in anything. Because I used to teach dance classes before we moved to Brazil and Lumi was little, and I would turn my phone off every time. She'd be with my mom or she'd be with my stepmom, etc. But my phone had never been off before when she was with her dad, and I was freaking out, and there was no way I could turn my phone on because I was in the middle of this meditation retreat, which was a few hours. And I literally went through the entire feeling that my daughter had passed away, and that I couldn't contact her, and that I was never going to see her again. And her, everything's open to interpretation. It could have been my mind projecting it, but her guardian angel came down to me and told me that it was never me that had been protecting her. It was always the angel. And I started to breathe again in that retreat. And that was such a powerful moment for me. And from then on, she was probably only 6, or she was maybe 8, 6 to 8, around that age, pretty little. From that moment on, I started, anytime I get anxious about her well-being or anything, I just talk to her guardian angel, and just ask, like, hey, I need a little support right now, believing that everything's okay. Or, can you give an extra lookout for Lumi? So the issue, right, the question you actually asked, I'm going to bring it back now, of like why that has meaning. I had to tell all that because I used to have this big anxiety, right, about her safety. And it directly comes from the dangerous situations that her dad would put her in from infancy beyond, including leaving her, at 6 months old alone in the bathtub. Things just like dropping her on her head after trying to balance her in his left hand because he wanted to try it. Things that were just like really, I don't want to go too deep into, but it was serious level of mistrust about her physical well-being when she was with him. And that's sort of where it stemmed from. So I started developing, even when he was sort of more out of the picture and I was clearly single parenting, I was still really nervous, about, and I saw that. And this is about Prudence because it felt like, okay, well, if I let her do that, then this could happen, right? Or if I take her for a bike ride on the street, well, a car, if she's riding in front of me, then a car could, she could not be aware of the line she's drawing. If she's riding behind me, I can't see what's actually happening. So I was always protecting her in this way. And even, it looks like overprotection, but it really was about this prudence of like this control of like making her discernment for her. And what I realized is that I wasn't trusting her. I wasn't trusting that being could actually fend for itself, for herself in the world, from a little age. And I had to really let go and reel myself in and to allow her to develop. And it wasn't anything like major constrictive, but I noticed this from a very, I noticed it a long time ago and got a handle on it a long time ago in my parenting journey. But it was me sort of with my own discernment and my own, what I thought was being prudent, shielding her in a way that actually took away her own shield and her ability to build the muscle to carry her own shield, So that's how I've seen it sort of wrongly applied. How I've seen it rightly applied as a parent is, too many ways to to talk about, but offering guidance while still allowing her to take the risks and make the choice, right? So having those conversations or showing her, when they're little, you show them things a lot more through action than dialogue. And I mean really Absolutely. Little, right? Like 2, 3. And then as they develop verbally, of course, it comes in the way of dialogue. But through that path of learning to let go and let her own navigational system operate fully, instead of me trying to constantly engage in her own GPS.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it really allows her to, it started allowing her to just come online in a
Yeah.
way, and also lose because just energetically, even though I wasn't telling her like, oh, I'm paranoid, I'm paranoid about your well-being, she could feel it, right? Energetically, they can feel
Yes.
that.
100%.
100%.
Yes. Just the unspoken cues and
Yeah.
right from the energy to the nonverbal communication to the body language to the everything. Like kids are so smart. People in general are so smart. You can just sense it. It is a very, you're not covering it up. It's a very overt thing, whether you open your mouth or not. Like people can just sense it. They smell what you're stepping in. It's all over your face and your body. It's so true. I love that picture that you painted of her just like
Yeah.
not having the muscle to hold her own shield. Like again, like I love the way you frame things because in my mind I'm just like, ah. I love people that speak and think in analogies because it just gives practically like I can visualize what you're trying to say for the intangibles. You make them very tangible. But yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And I think yeah, with our girls too, it's difficult. Every parent wants to, it's a natural instinct, wants to guard, I would say, for a good parent or someone who actually genuinely loves their children. And I know there's some people out there that are some nasty, evil people in the world, but for the general person that is a parent, I feel like they want what's genuinely best for their children, to protect them, love them well, the best they know how. But I do believe you're spot on with, especially at an early age, where developmentally it's the most important, we rob them of so much. And I think practically, just to throw this out there, what I've done with Laura for our girls, and we try to talk about a lot. We punt a lot. We don't get everything right, but there are some things I'm proud of us for what we've done. And I would encourage people who might not be parents or maybe parents of little kids or still have some time to go back and try new things, just to, because again, I love trying to give practical ideas like what Sarah's doing for people to just latch onto if it resonates and if it's a struggle. Because teaching your child to make good decisions and to be prudent and to filter through all of these things that they're getting injected with all of the senses these days and to make wise choices with sensory overload, especially nowadays, that it becomes increasingly more difficult. And I think the role as a parent becomes increasingly more important in these earlier stages of life where they are exposed to so much that we weren't at that age. There's so much more competing interest for their attention and their decision making.
Absolutely.
And so I tell them a lot, like if they're, oh, daddy, what should I do? I'll say, hey, if dad and mom weren't here in the room right now to tell you what to do, I want you to think about what you would do, and I just want you to do it. And I don't want you to tell me what you're doing, just do the thing. So if dad wasn't here to instruct you, what would you do as a person for yourself? And do it. And there's no wrong answer. And I'm here, so just don't be unsafe. Don't try to hurt someone else. Don't do anything that's wrong or bad. But just make a choice and do it. And then if you want to talk about it, let me know what you did later, and then we can chat about it and see what's up. And sometimes I don't even give them a back brief or follow-up. I just let them make a choice and go. Because that autonomy, it's important for their prudence development. It's also, it circles back to like, you're such a creative person. And I think that comes from probably a lot of things in your life earlier on that your parents did to give you some creative liberties. So again, you're dousing some of the most beautiful things of childhood, which is creativity. And we lose so much of that as adults. Why would you want to kill it when they're a kid? So I just like, I love the space of recognition that you gave of like, oh, I don't want to squash her own development and her own muscle building. And I also just want to give her space to be a kid. But that's hard because I want to protect. And it's really, I struggle with it too. Whatever. That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for saying what we all were probably thinking, because I'm right there with you, man. It is rough.
Yeah, it's rough.
But I think it's I also think prudence, we've touched on this a little bit, but I think it can be misunderstood as whether it's timidity or playing it safe. How do you discern personally the difference between wise caution and maybe the other end of that spectrum, which is just avoidance, and an avoidance that might be quietly limiting that growth or that courage? So how do you differentiate those two?
Well, this is hard to know. This is not an easy distinguishment to make. I thought about this question a lot. Like, how do I? Because again, I've been called a prude a lot, and I mean, even now, most of the people who know me are like, oh, you're not going to want to go to this because it's not really your style or whatever. And they're right. Probably not going to go. There's going to be a bunch of people like at a bar just talking smack or whatever. I'm probably not going to be there,
Right.
or other situations. But I thought a lot about this. I have thought a lot about this. And I think that it comes down to a body response for me. And my question that I always ask myself that I told you before, like how will I feel? First of all, I imagine myself doing the thing. Let's say there's a situation like let's say I'm maybe taking a risk and talking to some new people. It's hard for me to talk to new people. It wasn't always as hard. Here it's even harder. And I can chit chat, but I mean to make real conversation and open up and really tell your story or engage in a meaningful way is harder for me with strangers. So let's say I kept imagining this scenario when I was thinking this question, that I was at an art opening. I don't know why I was imagining this, probably because I work for an art gallery and I've gone to a lot of art openings. And I'm standing there at this art opening and there's like, I'm single and there's like a really nice looking guy over there, seems to be friendly, open-hearted. And I'm asking myself, do I go talk to him or not? My instinct is always not, just because that's what's most practiced for me, because I tend to not only be prudent, but really introverted, meaning I source a lot of my energy being alone. I go to the gym alone. Sometimes now I go with my daughter, but I walk on the beach alone. If safety were an issue, I would do every trail I could alone. I'd go camping alone. I like to be alone. But that doesn't mean I always want to be alone. So anyway, back to the scenario. So I put myself through, and this isn't just for this type of scenario, but this is sort of, I realized how I answer this. Is it me closing off and being timid and not taking a risk? Or is it prudence? So I imagine myself doing the thing, right? Talking to the man. And then I imagine how I'll feel the next day after I have done that. Is it something, did I feel in my body when I imagined that scenario, right? Because our brain, you know this as a psychologist, our brain doesn't actually know the difference when we're thinking about something or if we're doing it in a brain way, right? The body does. So the body will produce an action in a response for you, like of how that energetic situation is really happening, right? Like what's really happening here? So I put myself through the scenario. Will I feel good tomorrow after I've talked to him? And then I ask myself another thing. What do I have to lose if it goes wrong, right? Like how big is the risk? If it's just me talking to someone and either being rejected or going on a bad date, or maybe going on a really good date where we really connected and I really liked the person and there could be, a potential to get to know each other more. Like those are the risks or the possible outcomes. And how would I feel about that tomorrow? So it's easy in a situation like a date, but let's say it's back to my, the thing that I've always been cautious about, like substances. How am I going to feel tomorrow? Well, we already know. Right. I'm going to feel like crap. So then I know it's not me shutting down. It's prudence. It's not me being closed off. It's judgment. When someone says to me, hey, here's another scenario I just thought of. Like, do you want to, as this is something that recently I was talking about with a friend, do you want to plan to go on a trip next year? There's this place, Ponto de Fuego, in the south of Argentina and Chile, right? And it's where like the last place where the ships would cross around there, and a lot of people do expeditions down there. She's like, do you want to plan on doing this? And my initial reaction was, it is so cold there. I do not want to go there. No way. And then I thought, and I'm thinking through it now, okay, what do I have to lose? What are the risks? How will I feel if I made that commitment tomorrow? How would I feel if I woke up and that's what I was doing? And then me saying no originally is being timid and closed off to a new situation. Because am I going to die there? Most likely not. Am I going to get, addicted to some random substance that I tried once, which can happen? No, I'm not going to.
Right.
Is it going to be something? The outcome could probably only be beneficial. Me pushing my limits of what I feel I'm comfortable with, making a commitment to do something, and then gathering the resources, making the planning, and getting trained enough to make it happen. So I sort of go for those three things: my body's response, how I'm going to feel the next day, and what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a really good filter to put those through. I loved asking these because I was like, ooh, that's a question I genuinely have, but I didn't know where you're going to take it. And that's a very practical way to just sort of like play it out before you do it.
play it out before you do it. I think we
I
don't
love
always
it.
have time to do
No.
that, you know, in a certain situation. And that's where that pre-training comes, right? With building up this virtue.
Yeah. And I do think, again, I draw on so many things now that my dad used to say simply, and I loved how simple he was. Like, just some of the one-liners just really resonated because he said them a lot. But it sort of related to this. He used to tell us, hey, if you don't have a chance to really, really think something through and you're feeling pressured or rushed into something and you have a choice, if it's doubtful, just don't do it. So it was
There you
almost
go.
like if the risk isn't worth the reward, or it's not something that you're like really you have to do, if it's doubtful and you don't have that space to like really put thought into it and intentionality into it, or let's just say be prudent and judging on it, then he's like, if it's doubtful, just don't do it, man. It's okay. And then just
That
be
is
firm in that.
such wise advice.
I'm like,
I
wow,
find
it's so
myself, it's so wise. So wise.
it's so simple.
I say
There's your
something similar. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, well, there's your Uncle Joe. Like, sometimes I
Yeah.
just realize how blessed it was to have a dad that simplified some really difficult life things.
That's amazing.
And it just, so even when my girls laugh a lot when I say the same thing over and over, I'm like, one of these days you might appreciate it, maybe. But also, if you go to the Southern Peak and it's like really, really cold there, you can just hit up your cousin in Norway, and I'll send you some wool base layers. And they know how to stay warm in Norway, so you just let me know. We'll send some stuff your way.
Right.
We might be able to hook you up. There's your resources.
I imagine myself doing well in the cold, but it's something I've never done well in. But I do want to build up that muscle.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a sleeveless shirt, and I'm in a shirt jacket, so you can tell the difference already in the temperatures of where we reside. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but a lot of things like these virtues, if you view them through almost a balancing act, I don't think they are purely always all good, or a word is always purely evil. I think sometimes it's the balance of something in your application or misapplication of it. So for prudence, in my mind anyway, and you can share if you concur with this or view it differently, I'd love to hear. So go ahead and clap back if I'm wrong. But I view it as when it's overused, it looks really rigid in its control or sort of stuffy. Maybe that prude, like the abbreviated derogatory term you used to get called a lot. But then when it's underused, I don't think it's healthy either, because that can look like recklessness or just sensation seeking. So how do you personally notice if you're drifting to one extreme or the other of either overuse or underuse and you don't feel balanced? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are situations right now where in certain with certain topics I always lean towards one side, and there are others that I drift towards the other side. Like both can be true, that I drift towards one extreme in certain when it comes to certain things, and I drift towards the other extreme when it comes to other things. So it's tricky to define exactly, but I think that in just to say in general, I probably always in general at this stage in my life, just having so many responsibilities and on my plate all the time, and having to have my tank always at least half full energetically, because anything could happen that I have to take care of, right now. And I can't be running on empty ever. So I always sort of lean towards the side of caution at this point. And I do see how it's an extreme that doesn't always serve me, but it's necessary right now. So it serves the others for whom I'm responsible. And that's right now more important.
I think that's such a very honest, humble way to view it. Like prudence, when it's really applied, whether it's as a parent or in community, there are a lot of times I wish people could just sit here and anchor in for a second with what you just said. Like, it might seem like I'm overusing it, but it's not always meant to serve me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just such a beautiful way to view applying virtues in your life, especially like hearing that from the heart of a mother who's had to raise her daughter by herself and all of the things that come with that. You nailed it earlier. Like, I'm her playmate. I'm taking care of her. I'm wiping her butt and changing her diaper and giving her a bath and like teaching her about all the birds and the bees and the body changes and that's all you all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that is just, I have 3 little girls and I have my wife here and she does a great job. And then they have each other to distract each other and play at times. Like, one parent with one child is a mountain to climb. Like, oh, good Lord. No, it is. I love that that's where your heart stays with this, though. It's like, it's not just prudent for me. So a lot of times I'm overusing it because I have to for her or for others. And just your ability.
I'll give a very extreme, not extreme, but very practical example of that. How I've chosen something that, and I could be wrong. I could look back on this and say, but I'll tell you what it is that.
Sure.
So I separated from her dad, right, when she was 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been single I had one, before we left the States, I had a boyfriend who I never lived with or whatever. And at this time, Lumi was really little. She was, from the time she was 2.5 to like 4. My mom lived with us, and we had a small 3-bedroom house in Black Mountain, North Carolina, near Asheville. And it was a really great setup. My mom had just separated from her, 17 or 18-year relationship with Kevin. And so she moved in with us, and I would go on the weekends. And this boyfriend I had, Jeremy, he also had a daughter who was about 5 years older than Lumi. So when he didn't have his daughter, I would leave Lumi with my mom. And and this was before we moved to Brazil, right? And I became a total single mom, meaning no family support. And when he did have his daughter, I would take Lumi. So like maybe once a month, Lumi would stay with my mom and I would go to his place. This was like a year of my life. And I only saw him on the weekends. So that was the only actual, like, let's say committed relationship that I had since I separated from Lumi's dad. And I think we were chatting about this the other day before the podcast. It wasn't at first really intentional. I didn't have time to date when she was little, and I was never willing to put myself or her in a situation where I would like have a guy come over to the house as a date because I couldn't leave or find a babysitter. I never wanted to expose her to that. I have a lot of friends who did, and some of them it worked out for, some of them it didn't. So maybe this was a side that I leaned towards too much prudence. But I chose for her to not have a stepdad, to not have a guy who I didn't know what his effect would be on her, on me, on the way I parented, on the way he parented her or not,
right,
or was kind and loving to her or not. And I chose to stay single for her, childhood.
Yeah.
I'm still single to this day. Now, I say that because at some point it was a conscious choice. In the beginning, like I said, it was just a time issue and a not having the space issue. And then it turned into a conscious choice. And I think that if I weren't a foreigner, it may not have been a conscious choice. I may have sort of, because there's that aspect too, right? Of like not really knowing how to connect, not being one of them, being sort of seen as an outsider, and that there's that issue too. But as time went on and on, I am glad I made that choice, because there were men that I could have sort of made a relationship with and whatnot, and I'm really glad I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm alone now. Doesn't mean I'll have to always be alone, but
right.
it is a sort of a choice that I made that was for first my child, what I believed was first my child's well-being. And who knows, maybe I could have met someone who would have been amazing for my daughter, and she would have had a bigger family and more people, but that didn't happen, you know, and I think I would have known had I met that person.
Yeah.
And since it didn't, I didn't even, like, I've never had a guy over to the house.
Yeah.
I've never, you know, I just don't do that. And I never really let her know if I am going out with someone, which I really don't. I've gone on like maybe 3 dates. Don't tell that to anyone. I'm just not.
I'm not saying a word.
And none. I, you know, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Again, it does lean towards an extreme, right? But again, it's an extreme that I chose, and yeah, it might be overly prudent.
Yeah.
But right now, I think it's the best choice to serve her.
But you know what? I'll first of all, thank you for sharing that. That's I am genuinely just very blessed, and I just want to honor you with just how very open you've been on not just your story but your experience, because I know we talked about this the other day and we talk back and forth, and I tell this to every guest who has children. I say, hey, when you share your voice or your story or whatever you want, not to give unsolicited input, share whatever you want, but my target audience is always my little girls. And I think that as a parent, the heart of us, and I know your heart for Lumi and as a mother, and you just shared it with everyone to hear that. And I just want to honor that. Like, the target audience of all of my thoughts and words and actions are to just love them well and do my best to hopefully give them a good example that they can latch on to when this world gets sideways and confusing. And I know, like, having spoken to you and then hearing you again say it, yeah, being a parent, sometimes people might go, oh, that's extreme. Yeah, and guess what? My children are absolutely worth it. And I respectfully don't care how you want to view it. And I had someone just the other day ask, like, hey, I'm going to go out with so-and-so and so. There's going to be a few guys. And I know those guys are guys that go out and just tie it on. It's, first of all, it's really expensive to have a drink out in town in Norway, like through the roof expensive. So it's not fiscally prudent and wise to do it. But also, to throw the word back in there, but also I have the metric of, if someone else were to see me, or if my daughters for some chance were going to be like, oh, we went with mom to shop in Centrum and you were out with your buddies, and they walked by and saw dad, if they caught a glimpse of what I'm doing, would it be uncharacteristic, and would they not really recognize what I was doing or who I was based on my behaviors? Or would I be totally cool with my daughter popping in and surprising me if I was with a friend and being like, hey, I saw you, dad, and I wanted my friends to come meet you? Would I be like ashamed of my actions, or would I be thankful for the prudence I put into what I decided to do? So when I hear a parent that goes like, I don't do that, I don't bring this over to the house, I choose to say no for my daughter, and from the lens of Josh, which is probably radically different from a lot, I'll give you that, I don't look at that as like, oh, that's, you know, you're being a prude, or that's stuffy, or that's overusing it, you're going overboard. Like, if there's anyone worth going overboard for in this life, to love them well, I think it's our kids. So I'm proud of you for what that's worth. That's a really amazing decision. It really is.
I think that I would rather err on the side of caution, and not always, not in every situation, but on this one,
yeah.
If I was wrong, you know, if I exercised too much prudence and protected too much, I'd rather this one be erring on the side of caution, you know?
I think they're worth it.
I'm okay with that.
I would agree with you on that one. So this is going to be our final question, but I like to open this one up as well, because you already said that you do a really good job of playing things out into the future and applying prudence to it. So maybe not through a prudence lens, but playing your head down in this road into the future a little bit. If you were to walk away from this podcast and then reflect back and be like, you know what? I wish Josh or someone else would have asked me this. What would that question be, and how would you respond to it?
It's such a great question. And again, I thought about this for a while, and I came up with this one because since I am an artist, and, you know, passion and creativity are such a big part of it, and I was very passionate about my art form for many, many, many years. Art forms. My question was, how can prudence coexist with passion and creativity and not put them out?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You're good at this question thing.
Oh, thanks.
I'm going to let you host the next episode.
So my answer, do I get to answer the question too?
I hope so.
My answer is actually something that I used to remind myself all the time that my Indian classical dancer used to tell us, which is if you don't like repetition, if you don't like discipline, you have no business being an artist. And I think that it's really interesting. Like people don't think about that unless you are.
So
And
good.
and I mean, if you're a hobby artist, not that hobby artists can't be very serious about that. Let's say if you're
Yeah.
a non-committed artist, right? You just do it for fun. You don't care about the result. You don't care about honing anything. You might not understand this. And people who aren't like passionate about a creativity
Yeah.
endeavor might not get it. But it's all repetition. It's all discipline applied to that thing you're passionate about. And that's
Yes.
how prudence exists, because you have to know, like, okay, I have to sleep tonight. I have to sleep 9 hours tonight because tomorrow, and you know this, I mean, I don't, I
I'm
really
envious
don't-
of whoever's getting 9 hours of sleep. That's where my mind went.
9
But
hours
please
of
tell
sleep.
me, tell me
I
more.
mean, now I don't, but
Yeah.
I have to sleep because tomorrow I have a 5-hour rehearsal
Yeah.
and then a performance after it or whatever, or
Right.
even taking out the sleep one, like I'm going to have to work on this exact step, taking it to dance, right? I have to work on that step and I have to do this choreography probably 175 times before I can even audition to make it onto the stage, And so I think that to answer the question, like prudence is what gives the passion, the creativity, a vessel. It gives it that pot to grow from, it gives it the soil and it gives it the otherwise it's unapplied. It's a bunch of passion, but you might not know what's the best way to channel it. What's the best way to apply it? And where, again, those questions we were saying in the beginning, like where, when, and how, right? To what audience, what format.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things that people always comment sort of about my personality, like, oh, you're just not passionate. Like, I'm just so passionate, that's why I involve myself with a bunch of guys, or I'm so passionate, that's why I drink. It's like, no, that has nothing to do with it. Passion, discipline, and prudence don't cancel out passion. In fact,
No.
they make it more beautiful, right? They make it something more rare that you sculpt after. They make it
My
something
mic's like
more
on this thing, but I want to unhook it and then just drop it for you because that's such a like what a powerful way to package that up. Yeah, just discipline and prudence don't cancel out your passion. I do think they just magnify it and they make it more possible and more beautiful. Oh, that's so good. And I love that. That word of discipline is so, again, that's another virtue I've talked about, but people abuse and misinterpret that so much. And the way I try to teach the girls is discipline isn't a thing that I ever want to do to you. I want it to be something that you do for yourself. Not that I can't discipline them or find correction if they're wrong, but I tell them, like, I don't want you to hear discipline from your dad as a word that's like, oh, dad's going to discipline us or this.
right,
I,
right.
I can bring discipline in if I need to, and there are times where a parent should. But also I said discipline is a choice where you, like integrity, I feel like is being honest, but I tell them discipline, very simply, is choosing to do what's right in your heart when it's really, really hard and when you really don't want to. That's discipline. Sometimes it has moral weight. Sometimes it has physical benefit. Like I'm going to discipline myself to go to soccer practice, even though I'm tired and it's rainy and it's cold, but I know I need to show up for my team. So I'm going to discipline myself to do the right thing when I don't really feel like it. And I can find a lot of scapegoats why I shouldn't. And I said, and that's a you choice. I can't make that for you. And I shouldn't make a self-discipline choice for you because then you aren't learning self-discipline. But that and that prudence, that is what fuels the passionate, the creative. And I love it that you package that from such a beautiful story and a life of just like being so skilled and creative with things. But all of that skill and that opportunity as a dancer, as a singer, with all the travels you've done, the way that I hear that is just, wow, like Prudence, yes, but I hear, man, that is so much discipline. Because those opportunities, regardless of your skill, don't happen by chance. Some of them is a right place, right time, but most of it is a discipline of a lot of really hard work to hone that in, to then posture yourself for maybe that opportunity. And that's a gift when you get that. But if you're not disciplined, I'm sorry, I don't think you're getting it. And if you get it, you're not keeping it, because then it washes away really quick. So what a great question and response. Thank you for that. I'm so glad I asked you. See, that was better than anything I could have come up with. But I'm gonna leave this really quick note, and then I'm gonna turn it over to you for the last word, because I just want you to have the last voice in this space. But first of all, I can appreciate just how much you have poured into really caring for these questions, and it means so much to me. I love you, your fam, but I know that it takes a lot of focus and sitting here and having a long conversation about not a light topic. I hope you just go take a nice nap or something. It's like, what a gift to share this time with you.
Actually,
That's better yet. Go do it. But I just want to say, as I always do, like Laura, of course, but for Aria and Alessia and Karina, this is always for you girls. And you just need to hear my voice every time I can say that I love you. I really hope that you just appreciate and grow in virtue and all these different virtues. And this one's so special because it's just family. This is blood. This is what means so much to our family. Like, I'm so glad you got here, Sara. But this is always for you. And if no one else were to listen, I don't care, because I'm your dad. And to share this space with family and someone that I love that's so dear, I hope you listen to her words. What a beautiful time. Oh, we just love you so much. And to Lumi, of course, like, I haven't seen you in so many years, but I hope you hear your mom's heart and how much she loves you. I'm sure you know it, but hopefully you heard some things here today that can just resonate with you. What a gift to just be able to use technology and all this crazy stuff for some good, to leave a little bit of a legacy. Like, and Sara, I just want to tell you, like, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. This is just such a gift, and I love you so much. And I want to turn it over to you, but thank you for gracing us with the gift of you and your heart and your voice and your love and your experience and your prudence. Oh, it's just so beautiful. So I'm going to let you have the last word, and then to all of you, I'm so glad you joined. But Sara, over to you to close us out before we get out of here, and you can go unplug your mind and hit the gym.
Well, thank you. Really, I love you so much too. I'm so glad we keep in touch. You know, despite the distance and the years we've seen each other in physical presence. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I was really honored to be able to accept the invitation and talk about this. I told you this, you know, when I first listened to your first podcast, not your first, but the first I listened to, that I was just really impressed and appreciate the work you're doing with these podcasts and the way that you speak with people. I think it's really powerful. It's so heart-centered, and it's really humbling, and it's just so powerful. Like, it's such a nice legacy for your girls, and a way to engage people into and guide people into the depths of themselves and how we experience the world, and talk to each other about that. So thank you for listening to me, and you know, the questions.
Such a joy.
And it's been really fun. It's been really great.
I know. Love you so much. And coming from you, what a joy and an honor. So you are so welcome, and you are so worth it. And to all of you, have a great weekend. We love you. See you soon. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my reflections and stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.